Ben 10 picks up the red super energy device. Chapter 21. In the distant reaches of space, Vilgax, ever persistent in his pursuit of the Omnitrix, embarked on another mischievous journey. The mechanical monsters are ready. They should be able to retrieve it based on the Omnitrix's previous signal. A military officer under Vilgax respectfully reported to Vilgax, who was recuperating in a nutrient solution. Perhaps. But once the Omnitrix falls into the hands of that Earthling, he will be my most formidable enemy. Vilgax said with a serious expression. Tian Xiaoyan thought, perhaps you haven't met me yet. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Tian Xiaoyan and the others found that the old RV was a bit dirty. Tian Mark and Tian Xiaoyan stayed behind to clean the RV. Ben Tennyson and Gwen Tennyson went into the nearest department store. Grumble, grumble. After a while of browsing, Ben Tennyson's stomach rumbled with hunger, and he said tiredly, I'm so hungry. He then spotted a box of biscuits on a nearby shelf. Cool. Ben Tennyson picked up a box, exclaiming in surprise. However, the boxes were arranged in a specific order, placed together. Ben Tennyson just happened to take one from the middle, disturbing the structure, and the boxes, not being secured, tumbled down. They even happened to cover Gwen Tennyson, who was reading nearby. Gwen Tennyson poked her head out from the boxes and said to Ben Tennyson, You're so great. Hee hee. Ben Tennyson chuckled sheepishly. An artistic masterpiece, little Ben. After they walked out, Tien Mark scraped off some graffiti with a tool and said with a smile. Yeah, that's called self-expression. Ben Tennyson replied without an ounce of shame. Oh, yeah. If I find any more graffiti next time, you'll be cleaning it yourself, kid. Tian Xiaoyan's cold voice came from behind the old RV. Hee hee. Ben Tennyson scratched his head and chuckled foolishly. But just as they were chatting, bang! A laser beam directly hit a car not far from them, causing a huge explosion. Now that's what I call self-expression. Gwen Tennyson shouted as she watched the exploding vehicle. Now, 3 terrorist-like individuals emerged, wearing helmets and carrying firearms with somewhat over-the-top power. What are you looking at? One of them, who seemed to be the leader, pointed his gun at Tian Xiaoyan and the others. He then fired a shot. Seeing this, Tian Xiaoyan, at the last moment before the energy attack reached them, rotated his watch, and after a red flash. Bang! Tian Xiaoyan appeared in front of the trio, transformed into amphibian, and absorbed the attack. Cool. No matter how many times I see this hero, I always think he's so cool. Ben Tennyson poked his head out from behind Tian Xiaoyan, his eyes shining. Amazing reaction, Xiao Yan. Tian Mark also marveled at Tian Xiaoyan's quick reflexes. It's nothing. Tian Xiaoyan said, scratching his head and smiling. What the hell is this thing? One of the guys, holding his gun, looked at Amphibian's alien form with a hint of fear. Who cares what it is, anyone who dares to stop me from getting my money will get lost. The terrorist who had just fired a shot wasn't afraid at all and fired another shot at Tian Xiaoyan. Seeing this, Tian Xiaoyan, not backing down, controlled the energy he had just absorbed and counterattacked. Bang! The collision of the 2 energy streams caused a small ripple. Everyone present covered their faces with their hands. Brother, I'll help you. Ben Tennyson, facing the hot wind, rotated his watch, then slapped it down. After a green flash, 4 arms made his grand appearance. Ha! Ben Tennyson leapt into the air, gathering strength, and slammed his fists directly onto the ground, causing a ripple that reached the group of guys. The 3 armed terrorists fell to the ground in a panic. Time to finish this. Ben Tennyson walked forward with a sinister grin, intending to deal with them. Wait, little Ben. Tian Xiaoyan knew the true identities of these guys and quickly stopped him, because he understood Ben Tennyson. What? They're all women. Ben Tennyson stepped forward, grabbed 2 of them, and pulled off their helmets, revealing faces similar to delinquent girls. I don't hit girls. Ben Tennyson said, pouting his lips at the sight. How considerate. One of the red-haired leading women smiled and picked up her gun, intending to ambush Ben Tennyson. However, she saw 2 extended lines directly hit her gun. After a flash of electricity, the weapon in her hand was instantly rendered useless. He doesn't hit, but I do. Especially bad girls. Tian Xiaoyan's teasing voice came from behind the red-haired woman. The red-haired woman turned her head and saw a dark fist directly hit her face. Ah! The red-haired woman flew backward in pain. Wow! Brother, did you really hit her? Ben10 saw this scene, and while he wanted to thank Tian Xiaoyan for helping him avoid the sneak attack, he still marveled at Tian Xiaoyan's ruthless hand. So what? She's not my type, Tian Xiaoyan said indifferently. He didn't like Luo Zhao anyway. Just then, two strange sounds came from the sky. Tian Xiaoyan and the others looked up. Three of the mechanical flying monsters they had defeated at the campsite appeared again, flying in the sky. Bang! As soon as the mechanical monsters saw the symbols on Tian Xiaoyan's and Ben10's chests, they immediately locked onto their targets and began to attack. Little Ban. One for you, and the other two for me. Tian Xiaoyan was the first to rush out, his body emitting electricity. Hey, brother, you're stealing my kills. Ben10, who was only assigned one, immediately rushed over, feeling indignant. Tian Xiaoyan dodged the shots from the two mechanical monsters, then jumped onto one of them. He inserted his hands and the two tentacles on his back into it. Immediately, electricity sparked everywhere. Tian Xiaoyan frantically absorbed the energy inside. Bang! Due to the reduction in energy, the mechanical monster fired wildly in all directions. One of the mechanical monsters wanted to seize the opportunity to shoot Tian Xiaoyan, who was on its companion. Seeing this, Tian Xiaoyan directly used the connector in his hand to block the firing port of the crazed mechanical monster. He frantically absorbed the incoming energy. You want to have a beam struggle with me? Are you out of your mind? Tian Xiaoyan looked at the mechanical monster opposite him with a sinister grin. Boom! One side shot out a red laser, the other a blue laser. The collision of two energy streams, completely different from before, caused a huge ripple. Ben10, who had dealt with one mechanical monster, immediately jumped to Tian Mark and the others, seeing this situation. He shielded them with his hands. The electric light flickering in Tian Xiaoyan's eyes became even more intense. At this moment, he didn't even notice that something different from the mechanical monster's energy was coming from his arm. Ha! Tian Xiaoyan roared. His full body energy directly blasted the mechanical monster opposite him. It caused waves of ripples. But it was finally resolved. After Tian Xiaoyan deactivated his transformation on the spot, he looked at his arm in confusion. He always felt something strange just now, but he couldn't quite pinpoint it. Xiao Yan, are you okay? When we called you just now, you didn't answer us. Tian Mark and the others rushed over, looking at Tian Xiaoyan worriedly. It turned out that while Tian Xiaoyan was in the middle of his beam struggle, Tian Mark and the others had been calling him. But they received no reply. I'm fine, Grandpa, maybe I just have too much earwax today. It's a bit blocked. Tian Xiaoyan thought about the situation just now, then smiled and made a gesture, digging his finger into his ear, saying. Really? Ben10, however, noticed Tian Xiaoyan's odd behavior and said with a frown. Alright. Don't think so much, we should go. Tian Xiaoyan marveled at Ben10's shrewdness. He quickly changed the subject and pushed everyone towards the old RV. He was still unaware of his own situation. That fooled electric plug monster. What is this thing? Luo Zhao woke up from her coma, seeing the surrounding area in ruins. She didn't show much emotion. Instead, she first complained about what Tian Xiaoyan had done to her. But then she saw the remains of the mechanical monster that Ben10 had casually flattened earlier. She picked it up curiously to examine it. Click. Unexpectedly, the picked-up mechanical monster remains suddenly glowed red, and then, under Luo Zhao's disbelieving gaze, extended a tentacle and directly hit her neck. Then Luo Zhao's body was rapidly transformed in a visible manner. Her body was covered in red parts, resembling a semi-mechanical being. And after the transformation was complete, the mechanical monster, as if its mission was over, detached itself from Luo Zhao. Luo Zhao looked at her no longer human body in surprise. Just then, the police arrived. They pointed their pistols at Luo Zhao. I've already been to jail, now it's time for revenge. Luo Zhao felt a certain power in her body. She looked at the police with disdain. Then, red mechanical tentacles protruded from her shoulders. Bang! She fired a laser, directly hitting the police cars, causing them to flee in fear. Luo Zhao looked at her sharp claws and said with a smile, "Now this is more like it." She then picked up the wad of money she had stolen earlier and slowly walked away. Meanwhile, Tian Xiaoyan and the others, safe and sound, were reflecting on the recent events in the old RV. Tian Xiaoyan, however, was somewhat lost in thought, looking at his arm. When he was firing energy just now, he felt a strange sensation emanating from his arm. He hadn't paid attention to it before, but now, recalling it, it felt a bit eerie. "Brother, what are you thinking about? Is it because of what happened just now?" Gwen Tennyson walked over at this moment, asking worriedly. "It's nothing. Just a tiny bit of a strange feeling. Don't worry, little sister, I'm really fine." Tian Xiaoyan lowered his head and was silent for a while, then looked up again and gave a warm smile. "All right then." Gwen Tennyson didn't say anything more, seeing this situation. If Tian Xiaoyan were truly in trouble, he probably wouldn't hide it from them. "Hey, brother. Come play the latest Rampage sumo video game with me." Ben Tennyson pulled Tian Xiaoyan to the computer at this moment, saying with a smile. "Okay." Tian Xiaoyan also realized he needed to clear his head. He smiled and didn't refuse. But he didn't notice that a faint red light had reappeared in his hand. Meanwhile, on his spaceship far in space, Vilgax once again received news of the mechanical monster's failure. Just as he was about to dispatch more mechanical monsters to his subordinates. His subordinate shook his head. "I don't think it's necessary. It seems the mechanical monster has merged with someone. I've detected a signal. And the signal is still moving." He respectfully reported to Vilgax. Perhaps it would be more suitable to have someone with intelligence handle this." Vilgax pondered for a moment, then ordered his subordinate to connect with Luo Zhao, who had merged with the mechanical monster. He wanted to speak to this earthling personally. Help! There's a monster. In a jewelry store on Earth, Luo Zhao was using her abilities to attack it. This caused the surrounding people to flee in a panic. But just as she was melting the display window with a laser to get the jewels, she found that she couldn't pick up the jewels normally. However, at this very moment, Luo Zhao's body began to show problems. "Listen to me. No matter who you are." Vilgax's majestic and shocking voice echoed in Luo Zhao's mind. "Who are you? Where are you? How are you in my head?" Luo Zhao clutched her head, screaming frantically. "No backtalk. You listen when I speak. From now on, you're going to listen to me." Hearing this, Luo Zhao immediately stood up and retorted, "Listen to your head. I only listen to myself." Vilgax saw that Luo Zhao wouldn't take the easy way out. He once again manipulated the mechanical monster parts within Luo Zhao's body to create intense pain, causing Luo Zhao to half kneel in agony. "You now possess power beyond your imagination. Unless I teach you how to use it. If you obey, I can teach you. Otherwise, I will turn you into dust." Vilgax's large green face, covered in tentacles, appeared in Luo Zhao's mind. His undeniable tone made Luo Zhao grit her teeth. "What do you want?" Luo Zhao was also scared, looking warily at Vilgax. "There's one. No. Two things that should belong to me, and if you're lucky, you can help me get them back." Vilgax originally wanted to say the Omnitrix was his target. But the Ultimatrix on Tian Xiaoyan's hand made his desire overwhelm him, causing him to repeat that sentence. "So, you have two targets, huh?" Luo Zhao asked tentatively, based on the total amount of things described and the two watch images that suddenly appeared in her mind. "That's right, but to ensure the progression of things, I will teach you another thing that can add partners for you." Vilgax's red eyes stared at Luo Zhao. After some struggle, Luo Zhao sighed helplessly when she looked at the scenery outside again. Then she took a photo from her pocket, walked away with a strange smile. "Phew. I feel much better. Thanks, little Ban." Tian Xiaoyan, holding a game console, looked at the game clear text on the screen, then turned to Ben Tennyson and said with a smile. "Hee. It's good that you're happy, big brother." Ben Tennyson rubbed his head and chuckled foolishly. "Looks like someone's finally cheered up. Come try my latest dish." Tian Mark walked over with a large platter of food. Tian Xiaoyan and the others looked over. But the dishes inside made Ben Tennyson and Gwen Tennyson grimace. Wiggling white worms. And raw marinated octopus tentacles. And what is this stuff? Grandpa, can't you make something normal? Ben 10 looked at the bizarre, colorful things in front of him. He covered his mouth, trying to suppress the urge to vomit, and said speechlessly to Tien Mark. I think I'll go read a book for a while first, otherwise my throat might rot. The kind that makes you throw up until you burst. Gwen 10 also covered her mouth, then turned and walked inside, picking up a book as she spoke. Alright, it looks like only the two of us can finish this delicious feast. Xiao Yan. Tien Mark looked at his two grandchildren and said helplessly to Tien Xiaoyan. It's okay, Grandpa. These are delicious. Tien Xiaoyan, not scared at all, stuffed the items into his mouth and savored them with relish. Meanwhile, on the other side, Luo Zhao also found the apartment of her former companions who had abandoned her outside. With a sinister grin, she made the two red tentacles on her shoulders fire lasers, sweeping through the apartment building. Ah! Many people ran out of the apartment. Because Luo Zhao was looking for her target, she controlled the force a bit. Then, with what seemed like scanning eyes, she finally found a girl with purple hair and dyed hair, looking panicked. Found you. Luo Zhao made a big leap into the middle of the crowd, directly grabbing the two guys. Lifting them into the air. Ah! Let me go. One of the blue-haired girls screamed in terror. Hey, we've only been apart for a little while, and you already don't remember what I look like. Luo Zhao said strangely. You are. Sister Luo Zhao. How did you become like this? The purple-haired girl also recognized Luo Zhao's iconic red hair on her forehead. Luo Zhao didn't say much. She kindly indicated that she now needed some helpers, so she wanted the two of them to help her. The two girls gradually calmed down, but the next scene made them completely unable to calm down. Two red tentacles emerged from Luo Zhao's body, then, under the horrified gaze of the two girls, directly pierced their bodies. Ah! The two girls screamed in terror. Unfortunately, it still couldn't change the partial transformation of their bodies. After a while, Luo Zhao slowly put them down. At this point, the two girls were already half mechanical. But their eyes were lifeless, like puppets. These are the teammates I want. Next, it's time to find what that big guy wants. Luo Zhao looked at the two, who completely obeyed her commands, and said with a smile. Immediately, she set her sights on the city center. While Tien Xiaoyan and the others were resting in the old RV, the radio suddenly blared a terrible alarm. The content transmitted shocked them. Mayday, we have a situation here. There's a mechanical monster-like guy constantly hurting people with lasers. In the city center. So noisy, idiot. The radio's final transmission was a female voice. Impatient, along with the sound of laser blasts. Looks like something's happened. Tien Mark quickly sat in the driver's seat, saying gravely. But what is it? With me and my big brother, there's definitely no problem. Ben 10 said indifferently, holding up his watch and sitting on the chair, laughing. Little Ban. Be prepared for everything. Don't let your guard down, understand? Tien Xiaoyan also knew that this was definitely Luo Zhao's doing. Okay. Ben 10 nodded patiently. Immediately after, Tien Mark started the old RV and rushed to the location exposed by the radio. Bang! 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 Countless people were fleeing. Luo Zhao, this time with her two subordinates, stood in the center, constantly causing destruction. Because according to Vilgax's teachings, as long as they did this, the other party would surely show up. Tien Mark also arrived on time at this moment. It's her, how did she become like a upgrade? After Tien Xiaoyan and the others got out of the car, Gwen 10 was the first to recognize Luo Zhao's appearance. Who is it? Ben 10, who was bad with faces, turned to ask. The crazy woman my big brother beat up this morning, you airhead. Gwen 10 said helplessly. Oh, actually, it wasn't really a beating. Tien Xiaoyan's cheek dripped with cold sweat when he heard that, and he said helplessly. It's you, perfect, give me those two watches. Luo Zhao seemed to detect something at this moment, her eyes scanning the watches in Tien Xiaoyan's and Ben 10's hands. She also remembered that the guy she met this morning was him. Luo Zhao was exceptionally excited about dealing with acquaintances. She commanded her two subordinates to attack Tien Xiaoyan and the others. Bang! In an instant, countless lasers came towards Tien Xiaoyan and the others. In that instant, Tian Xiaoyan respectfully pressed his watch. After a red flash, Tian Xiaoyan stood in front, his steel body, with only a slight trace, appeared. NRG appeared. You've taken the wrong path. Tian Xiaoyan patted his steel arm and said angrily. HMPH, who cares about you, big iron guy? Attack. Luo Zhao scoffed disdainfully. Then she commanded the blue-haired and purple-haired girls to advance and attack. They were like emotionless machines, running forward with their mechanized arms raised. HMPH. Tian Xiaoyan, not to be outdone, also ran forward. The moment their mechanical arms slammed down, Tian Xiaoyan reached out and grabbed them, flinging them aside. Then he shot a molten ray towards Luo Zhao. Bang! Luo Zhao dodged with a roll. Then she quickly ran forward, leapt into the air, and launched a fierce barrage of attacks on Tian Xiaoyan. Tian Xiaoyan protected his body with both hands and retreated. After Luo Zhao's subordinates were thrown away, they stood up again and locked onto Tian Mark and the others. No way. 4 arms is here. Ben10 shouted loudly, holding up his watch. Then he rotated the watch and slammed it down. After a green flash, Stinkfly, with dragonfly wings, appeared. Enough, can't you just listen to me for once? Stupid watch. Ben10 gritted his teeth, looking at his delicate arms, truly unable to bear it. But he still flew into the air, spraying slime, and began to fight them. Remember not to think of them as girls, airhead. Gwen Tennyson reminded Ben Tennyson from a distance. I know. Ah. Ben Tennyson turned his head, just about to respond. He was hit in the body by a ray from one of the guys. Ben Tennyson angrily gritted his teeth, rushed to her, and with a direct tail whip, sent her flying far away. Big brother is right, bad girls are really annoying. Ben Tennyson looked at the other purple-haired girl, who was raising her mechanical arm and walking towards him, and said with a very approving tone. Tian Xiaoyan. Did I say that? Tian Xiaoyan, however, had no time to complain. He and Luo Zhao supported each other with their arms. Confronting each other, Vilgax sent you, didn't he? How did you learn this transformation trick? He knew Luo Zhao was sent by Vilgax. But Luo Zhao turning the other two into similar mechanical symbiotes. He really hadn't expected it. Luo Zhao looked at Tian Xiaoyan in surprise after hearing that. Who knows what Vilgax is? I only know a weirdo with a tentacled face. He wants me to bring him these 2 watches, or else he'll take my life. So please just listen, okay? Luo Zhao was also very helpless. That feeling of having one's life in someone else's hands, able to be crushed with a single blow, was truly unbearable. Indeed. Vilgax has also set his sights on the Ultimatrix. If I had his coordinates, maybe I could track him too. Tian Xiaoyan didn't know why he suddenly felt a bit agitated. But he still calmly looked at Luo Zhao. At the same time, a red energy thread was coiling around Tian Xiaoyan's arm. But he himself didn't notice. Hey! Didn't your mom tell you it's rude to stare at a girl like that, don't you know? Luo Zhao at this moment seized on a weakness Tian Xiaoyan revealed. She suddenly exerted force, pulled Tian Xiaoyan with her hand. Then, with an over-the-shoulder throw, she slammed Tian Xiaoyan to the ground. Oh, I knew I shouldn't have been distracted. Tian Xiaoyan cried out in pain, then immediately saw the protruding parts of Luo Zhao's shoulder and arm about to fire red lasers. Tian Xiaoyan, in his current state, pressed the icon on his chest. After a red flash, the laser also hit Tian Xiaoyan's position as expected. HMPH. Do you know how powerful I am now? Luo Zhao looked on disdainfully. But then, a red barcode-like arm emerged from the thick smoke. Luo Zhao's eyes widened as she looked at the soft, black creature in front of her, with a circle and the rest being red barcodes. What is this thing? Luo Zhao looked completely dumbfounded. Upgrade. Oh, but this form does look a bit like Deformation Monster. Tian Xiaoyan was about to introduce himself. But he found that his current appearance was a bit like Deformation Monster. It was clearly green before, why did it turn red? But just as Tian Xiaoyan was still wondering, Luo Zhao couldn't wait any longer and fired a laser first. Bang! Seeing this situation, Tian Xiaoyan revealed a large hole in his body to dodge the laser. He turned his head to look at Luo Zhao in surprise, then said helplessly, "Are you in such a hurry? Let me help you then." After speaking, he transformed into a pile of black soft matter. Before Luo Zhao could react, he directly pounced on her body. Luo Zhao's mechanical body emitted violent electric sparks. What are you doing? Luo Zhao struggled to tear Tian Xiaoyan off her body, but found her body stiffening, then completely unable to move. I'm helping you escape your suffering, be patient. Tian Xiaoyan forcefully disintegrated the mechanical monster parts on Luo Zhao's body. And what he had expected also happened. His consciousness began to arrive in a green scene. Can't you change the location, big tentacle? Tian Xiaoyan looked at the surrounding scene and mocked Bilgax before he even appeared. Who are you? Because Tian Xiaoyan was still in his upgrade form. Bilgax stared at Tian Xiaoyan with wide eyes. It was the first time anyone dared to be so disrespectful in front of him. Who I am has nothing to do with you. But you can forget about getting the Omnitrix in this lifetime. And this one on my hand. Tian Xiaoyan did not answer directly. He pointed at the symbol on his chest and said mockingly. You don't have that ability. You brat. This should still be the consciousness part. Bilgax could do nothing to Tian Xiaoyan but threaten him angrily. Heh, you can only howl powerlessly now. The next time we meet, I won't let you off either, you stinky tentacle. Bye. Tian Xiaoyan transformed his body into a red striped pattern. It covered the entire conscious mind. Then he drove Bilgax out. Then, after a commotion in Luo Zhao's body, he reappeared and regained his form. Luo Zhao looked at Tian Xiaoyan. She was about to fire a laser from her sniper, but unexpectedly found the mechanical parts on her body starting to fall off. Finally, she transformed back into her normal human form, a delinquent girl wearing a jacket. I'm back. Luo Zhao covered her face in surprise. I destroyed the mechanical monster gene molecules in your body. You should be normal now. Tian Xiaoyan said, simply putting his hands on his hips. I'm just a girl, an ordinary girl. I was forced to do that. Luo Zhao looked at Tian Xiaoyan, understanding her current situation, and said innocently. You're a girl. I'm not blind either. But I'm not as soft-hearted as my brother. Just obediently lean against me. Tian Xiaoyan raised an eyebrow, then stretched out his arm to grab a thick rope from the side, saying coolly. Tisk. Seeing that Tian Xiaoyan wasn't falling for it, Luo Zhao helplessly surrendered. At the same time, far away on the space battleship, Bilgax roared in absolute rage because of Tian Xiaoyan's words, fool earthling. I swear, if I find you, I will tear you to pieces. And I won't let your family off either. The entire battleship seemed to tremble. Alright, next. Tian Xiaoyan tied Luo Zhao to the side. He was just about to go back to Tian Mark and the others. But he found that the two humans Luo Zhao had transformed were completely gone. And showed no signs of returning. Ben10 was also struggling to deal with one of the transformed humans. One of them was even waving a mechanical arm and walking towards Tian Mark and the others. What's going on? Why haven't they changed back? Tian Xiaoyan had also returned to his original form at this point and questioned Luo Zhao. Who knows? That tentacle face told me something. Humans of transformed seem to never be able to change back. Even if you turn me back into a normal person, they won't change back with me, heh. Luo Zhao could only say what she knew to annoy Tian Xiaoyan. Fool Bilgax. Tian Xiaoyan gritted his teeth and cursed upon hearing this news. Randomly, when he saw the transformed human waving its mechanical arm to attack Tian Mark and Ben10. Ben10 couldn't get away temporarily either, and could only yell, brother, hurry up. In this scene, Tian Xiaoyan also wanted to turn his watch to fast flash star and rush over. But the speed of transformation seemed faster than him. Just at this 0.05 second difference, Tian Xiaoyan felt a warm current in his body. The color of his eyes slowly turned into an energy like red. Red energy objects appeared in his hands. Brother, Ben10 was also about to ask Tian Xiaoyan for help but noticed Tian Xiaoyan's abnormality. Tian Mark also noticed at the same time. His eyes widened as if he had thought of something, and he opened his mouth in disbelief. The transformed human also sensed some threat at this moment, and instinctively turned its head and fired a laser towards Tian Xiaoyan. Tian Xiaoyan didn't know why, but his expression became cold at this moment. He used the red energy in his hand to create an energy wall, blocking the attack. Ha! Tian Xiaoyan transformed the energy in his hand into countless particles, spreading them around the transformed human. Then, under everyone's gaze, he clenched his hand. Ah! The transformed human's body began to rapidly decompose. But only the mechanical parts. At the same time, the human body's expression began to recover, looking at the surrounding red energy parts in horror. Finally, Tian Xiaoyan placed her on the ground. He floated into the air. Condensing energy in his hand, he directly fired a ray that hit the transformed human fighting Ben10. Ah! That transformed human also screamed in pain before detaching from the mechanical parts and falling unconscious. Ah, brother, what's wrong with you? Ben10 also disengaged from his stinkfly form. Looking at Tian Xiaoyan's monarch-like posture in the sky, he asked in surprise. Tian Xiaoyan didn't answer, looked around, then closed his eyes tightly and slowly fainted. And he was still falling. Ah, brother! Gwen Tennyson yelled as she watched Tian Xiaoyan fall. Ha! Tian Mark quickly ran at this moment, then caught the falling Tian Xiaoyan. Looking at the unconscious Tian Xiaoyan in his arms, Tian Mark looked at the sky, closed his eyes, and silently said, Verdona. After Tian Xiaoyan woke up some time later, he saw Ben Tennyson and Gwen Tennyson looking at him in disbelief. He asked suspiciously, what's wrong? Is there a flower on my face? Brother, do you really not remember? What just happened? Gwen Tennyson asked in surprise upon hearing this. Remember what? What are you talking about? I only remember that we defeated that crazy woman. After that, so painful, Tian Xiaoyan tried hard to recall, but felt a sharp pain in his head. Seeing the situation, Ben Tennyson rarely stopped his questions and let Tian Xiaoyan rest properly. Then he took Gwen Tennyson outside. Because he also felt that Tian Xiaoyan needed some quiet time. What they said, although I don't remember it, I seem to have some impression. Is this really me? What exactly is this? Tian Xiaoyan looked at the two people who walked outside. He also sighed. He then took out his arm, which was hidden under the covers. One could clearly see the red energy floating in his hand. Am I possessed, or what? What exactly is this? It feels so familiar. Tian Xiaoyan looked at the red energy appearing in his hand, saying in confusion. That's anodyne sky energy. Tian Mark walked out of the shadows at this moment, saying calmly. Grandpa. Wait, what kind of alien did you say? Tian Xiaoyan looked at Tian Mark's appearance in surprise. Immediately, his mind was completely stunned by the anodyne alien she mentioned. Anodyne alien. That's right. How could I forget this? My grandma seems to be an alien too. Thinking of ultimate alien. Gwen Tennyson's grandma, Verdona. She was an anodyne alien. Sky energy was even an exclusive ability of their race. Although it was a very common one. But anodyne aliens were the best users of this ability. That is to say, he had awakened his bloodline ability. It seems I have a cheat on me. I actually didn't discover it for so long. Tian Xiaoyan lowered his head somewhat speechless. Xiao Yan, you don't need to feel confused about your own abilities. There are some things I should tell you, but I hope you don't tell little Ban and the others. Tian Mark thought Tian Xiaoyan was feeling flustered and confused because of the sudden appearance of his abilities, and quickly comforted him. Although I don't know what you want to say, Grandpa. But I promise, Tian Xiaoyan thought for a moment and nodded. Immediately after, Tian Mark told Tian Xiaoyan everything that happened between him and Verdona. And also told Tian Xiaoyan that he was also an extraordinary plumber. Tian Xiaoyan, having heard the whole story, opened his mouth in surprise. Wow, what a huge scoop, it's so delicious. So, Dad and the others haven't awakened their abilities then. Have you seen Grandma again, Grandpa? Tian Xiaoyan asked tentatively. No. Frank and the others are normal Earthlings. But they also never wanted Xiao Wen or you to awaken abilities. I haven't seen Verdona in a long time either. She might still be in her hometown now. Or on some other planet. Tian Mark sighed and then looked at the sky. Is that so? Don't worry, Grandpa, I'll manage myself. As for my abilities, I'll train them when I have the chance. Tian Xiaoyan thought for a moment and said with a smile. Don't worry, I'll also tell you what I know. So you can train your sky energy well. Tien Mark looked at his grandson's reliable appearance and smiled back. It's just, I don't know how to explain your situation to little Ban and the others. Don't worry, Grandpa, I'll just bluff them a few words and they'll believe it. Hey. Don't make your brother and sister sound like idiots, explain it properly. Sorry, Grandpa. Tien Xiaoyan looked at Tien Mark's descending figure thoughtfully. This means he can also learn magic. Grabbing corpse, my dear. You better come quickly, I'm looking forward to your magic spellbook. Tien Xiaoyan looked at a certain distance with ill intentions. Then he walked towards Ben10 and the others who were waiting below them. Just then, a poster flew past them, with a terrifying circus icon on it. In the dim riverbed, two hooded men, one in a hood and one in a red hat, who looked like thieves, jumped off a boat and laughed. It was so much fun robbing this shipyard, ha 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 ha. The hooded man agreed. As the two of them were still roaring with laughter, the red-hatted man noticed ripples on the water. When he lowered his head to look, a pair of dark green eyes slowly emerged from the lake. Immediately after, a light green hand rose directly from the lake. At a speed the red-hatted man couldn't perceive, it grabbed his head and dragged him directly into the river. Ah! His companion's scream caught the attention of the hooded man who was observing his surroundings. He turned his head in terror and then saw his companion's red hat on the lake. Then, to his horror, a light green merman-like alien creature spat out from the water. It was Great Iron Jaw, transformed by Ben10. Ah! Seeing this, the hooded man quickly climbed the nearby ladder and headed upwards. Ben10's eyes flickered, then he dove into the water, following the hooded man's movements above. Finally, when the hooded man arrived next to a barbecue stall, Ben10 leapt out of the water, glaring at him menacingly. Ah! The hooded man gritted his teeth and looked at the nearby barbecue stall, a plan forming in his mind. He pushed it over, and instantly, black, oily gasoline flowed out, surrounding Ben10. Ben10 also realized something was wrong and was about to retreat when sparks from the barbecue stall's wires directly ignited the gasoline. Oh, no! Ben10 exclaimed in a panic, feeling the heat around him. I love traditional grilled fish dinners the most. The hooded man taunted, watching Ben10 struggle in the wall of fire. Ah! I can't breathe. Water! Ben10 shouted, clutching his throat. Just as the hooded man was about to add more fuel to the fire, a three-fingered claw grabbed his left hand. The hooded man turned his head to see Fast Flash Star, transformed by Tien Xiaoyan, looking at him coldly. Sorry, it's too late for grilled fish now. He then grabbed his left arm, spun him rapidly, and threw him into a nearby wooden box. Haven't you ever thought about working independently instead of robbing for ill-gotten gains? Tien Xiaoyan asked, hands on his hips, looking at him. Brother. At this moment, Ben10's weak voice came over. Tien Xiaoyan turned his head, looking rather helpless. I told you to turn into Diamondhead or Stinkfly, but you just had to pick Great Iron Jaw. Wait. Tien Xiaoyan scanned his surroundings and found a man wearing a red hat, holding a water pipe, staring blankly at them. I'll borrow this first. Tien Xiaoyan quickly moved to his side and, without waiting for his reaction, snatched the water pipe. Sizzle. After turning on the water pipe, he instantly moved to Ben10's side as it sprayed. He aimed at Ben10 and sprayed. In an instant, countless water streams, along with the flames, sprayed onto Ben10's body. Feeling the pleasure in his body, Ben10 let out a long howl to the sky, I'm alive. Thank you so much, big brother. Oh, you're done. Just as he was about to do something else, he noticed Tien Xiaoyan had tied the two guys together. Yeah, the police are almost here too, Tien Xiaoyan said, turning his head. A moment later, the police arrived. Just as they were about to take Ben10 away, Tien Xiaoyan noticed a police officer, unafraid of their appearance, smiling as he approached them. I didn't expect you circus freaks to have a sense of justice. The police officer's inexplicable words left Tien Xiaoyan and Ben10 a little confused. What circus freaks? We're superheroes. Ben10 showed off a bit, then leapt and jumped into the water. Ah! Got a flash. Tien Xiaoyan noticed the police officer's strange gaze, quickly put on his mask, activated the rollers on his feet, and transformed into a blue shadow, running into the distance. Still more like freaks. The police officer muttered, looking in their direction. While the people in the old RV were chatting, a strange circus poster on the roadside caught Gwen Tennyson's attention. Sambozo's circus tour. Cool. Gwen Tennyson exclaimed in surprise. Hearing the word, circus, Ben Tennyson's pupils instantly constricted. He seemed to recall something, becoming a little shy. I haven't been to a circus since I was a kid. It's quite fun. Do you want to go? Tien Mark asked the three of them. I really want to go. I love circuses. Gwen Tennyson said, fully agreeing. Because you're like a circus clown. Ben Tennyson turned to tease Gwen Tennyson. Gwen Tennyson immediately became displeased upon hearing this, staring at him. Little Ben. Tien Mark called out, a little helplessly. I don't want to go. That's for kids. Ben Tennyson pouted. Please, be mature. Gwen Tennyson looked at him, displeased. Ah. And it's also very late now, Ben Tennyson said, feigning exhaustion and stretching. Little Ben. It's only 11 in the morning. You know about our time difference. Besides, what's the harm in going just once? Tien Xiaoyan sat inside the RV, manipulating sky energy with his hand. Forming a small circle, it bounced back and forth in his hand as he spoke. After several days of practice, Tien Xiaoyan was already able to gradually change the shape of his sky energy. Its appearance could be considered natural. Alright. If you guys want to go, then go to that silly circus. Seeing he couldn't win, Ben Tennyson simply gave up, threw his hands up, and shouted, then lowered his head. What's wrong with you? Gwen Tennyson looked at the dejected Ben Tennyson, full of questions. Tien Mark raised an eyebrow, his thoughtful eyes scanning Ben Tennyson. This time, for little Ben, it's also a training opportunity. I'll try to intervene as little as possible. But Sambozo, if you dare to mess with my family in advance, be careful not to leave this circus alive. Tien Xiaoyan thought coldly, looking at the pulsating red energy in his hand. After some time, they arrived at the circus's exterior as planned and entered. Looking at the surging crowd around them, Tien Mark exclaimed, wow. It looks like everyone in town came to see the show. Gwen Tennyson also had an excited expression, following him. Ben Tennyson, however, looked around with a slightly open mouth at the strange buildings and the eerie clown murals on them, as if the eyes were staring at him. I think this place needs a good renovation. The style feels so weird, Tien Xiaoyan also complained, looking at the clown murals above with him. Yeah, exactly. I think so too. Hey, why don't we go back first? Maybe the tickets are already sold out, and we'd just be looking at air if we stayed, Ben Tennyson said, turning to agree after hearing this. Everyone, come and see. Just as Ben Tennyson was about to persuade Tien Mark to let them go back, a shout came from a distance. Everyone turned to look. A mustachioed man in a white and red suit and hat stood on a high platform, shouting loudly. The circus's biggest freak, the overlord of mountains and rivers, the incredibly strong bald overlord. After saying this, he pointed his hand towards an entrance. Then, a muscular, white-skinned freak wearing a black and white striped jumpsuit walked out from inside. He immediately placed a steel pipe on his back and forcefully bent it. Wow! Everyone watched in amazement. Tien Xiaoyan raised an eyebrow. For him, with his current mastery of sky energy, such a feat was a piece of cake. Next, the man in the suit began to shout again, and Bald Overlord at this moment casually tossed the bent steel pipe into the air. Just then, a strand of hair with a black bead at its end caught the steel pipe. A round of applause for snake-haired woman. At this moment, Chong Fanv, with long red hair and wearing the same clothes as the previous guy, twisted the steel pipe with her hair, which moved like a living thing, forming it into a circle. And finally, the last freak, the biochemical pervert, insidious and cunning, arrogant, sour stink. Then, a thin, sparse-haired freak with one red eye walked out, wearing a protective mask over his mouth. As he removed his mask, his almost rotten mouth was revealed. He opened his mouth, and green smoke aimed at the steel pipe that Chong Fanv had placed aside earlier. Sizzle. Sizzle. Subsequently, the steel pipe rapidly corroded at a visible speed, along with the table it was placed on, which also disintegrated. So gross. Gwen Tennyson exclaimed, her face contorted, upon seeing this scene. No wonder they're freaks, they're really strange enough, Tien Xiaoyan also said, agreeing. However, at this moment, Ben Tennyson quietly slipped away from the crowd. As he walked, he discovered a large, lit tent and curiously walked towards it. Through a peephole in the tent, Ben Tennyson saw a plump, white-faced, blue-nosed clown in a black and blue suit and a polite manner. The clown was seen smiling coldly at the mirror, he. Hello everyone, want to have some fun? Perfect, you're going to make them laugh themselves to death. He. He seemed to be giving himself a pep talk, but what shocked Ben Tennyson was that this guy's tongue was so long it could float out. Ben Tennyson gasped in shock and stepped back, only to bump into something. He turned around in surprise to see Tian Xiaoyan and Gwen Tennyson behind him, looking at him teasingly. Ah! Ben Tennyson yelled loudly. Gwen Tennyson looked at him in confusion. Tian Xiaoyan, however, thoughtfully glanced at the glowing tent in the distance. Don't be like that, Ben Tennyson said, panting, grabbing Tian Xiaoyan's shoulder. Quote? What? I didn't do anything. Tian Xiaoyan looked at him, confused. What's wrong with you? Gwen Tennyson could no longer suppress her inner questions and blurted them out. What do you mean? Ben Tennyson said, feigning confusion. Ever since we decided to come to the circus, you've been stranger than usual. What are you really afraid of? Gwen Tennyson asked, crossing her arms. I'm not afraid of anything at all. Ben Tennyson said, looking at Gwen Tennyson with feigned impatience. Just then, Tian Mark poked his head out and said, hurry up. The show's about to start. All right, let's go, don't keep Grandpa waiting. Tian Xiaoyan said slowly, pushing both of their shoulders. You'd better be normal, okay? Gwen Tennyson turned and said to Ben Tennyson. Of course, Ben Tennyson replied, gritting his teeth, but when he saw himself about to enter the circus, he still felt a hint of resistance. This is also for your growth, little Ban. You can't blame me after this is over. Tian Xiaoyan mumbled softly behind them, then a mischievous smile curled on his lips. After entering, Tian Xiaoyan and the others found a spot and sat down. After a while, the man in the suit who had been shouting at the entrance appeared again. He first showed off his verbal skills again. Then, mysteriously striking a pose, he announced loudly, let us welcome the circus's superstar. The clown, Sambozo. Following his shout, a toy car emerged, and then, to the audience's surprise, a large foot stepped out of the toy car, followed by a body and a hat. Then, Sambozo, dressed in a black and blue suit and slightly plump, made a stunning entrance. He first performed an impressive, joyful show for everyone. It must be said, he had some skills. But the machine behind him caught Tian Xiaoyan's attention. Is that the joy extractor? If you did something else, it might be more effective. Tian Xiaoyan said coldly, looking at Sambozo performing below. Ha 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 ha. The people around were greatly amused by Sambozo, laughing heartily. Even Tian Mark and Gwen Tennyson next to Tian Xiaoyan grinned and laughed, except for Ben Tennyson, who was afraid of clowns. Sambozo listened to the joyous sounds of the crowd, a crooked smile on his lips. Laugh, that's right. You can laugh yourselves crazy, Sambozo guarantees it. As he spoke, the machine behind him glowed with an eerie blue light. I'll go out first, I'm going to buy popcorn. Ben Tennyson, unable to stand still at this point, stood up and said to the three of them. Tian Mark and Gwen Tennyson looked at him in confusion. Tian Xiaoyan, however, nodded, signaling he could go. Ben Tennyson looked gratefully at Tian Xiaoyan, then quickly ran towards the exit. Is little Ban all right? Tian Mark asked, somewhat worried. Are you asking me? I've thought she was a bit off for a while, Gwen Tennyson said, shrugging, not surprised. However, at this moment, Tian Xiaoyan placed his hand on them and said seriously, all right, he's gone, I should explain a few things. Then, a dazzling red light appeared in his hand. Then, just as Ben Tennyson was sighing with relief, having finally escaped the terrifying circus, he heard a strange loud noise from outside, and curiously followed it. He opened his eyes and saw the three circus freaks from before. They were actually robbing an unattended jewelry store. This scene made Ben Tennyson realize that these guys were actually criminals. They're in big trouble. Ben Tennyson knew he couldn't stand by. He rotated his watch and then slapped it down. After a green light flashed, Among the three oddballs, Bald Overlord noticed it, turning his head to see a figure whose upper body was yellow but covered in eyes, with a single green eye on his chest. His head only had a pair of structures resembling bat ears, and his lower body was clad in black and white striped pants. The Omnitrix symbol was on his belt. What are you? Bald Overlord stared at Ben10, who looked a bit uncomfortable, with a surprised expression. This guy hasn't transformed before. Is he a new alien? Cool, from now on I'll call you I-Guy, Ben10 said with a laugh, looking at his own body. HMPH. It seems there are other oddballs besides us, Chong Fanb said coldly, swinging her red hair without a hint of fear. You'd best not get in the way. I-Guy. Sour Stink threatened, opening his large green mouth. Who cares about you, big mouth monster? Ben10 set his stance with a look of disdain and charged forward. He leapt into the air, gathered some of his eyes on his chest, and fired a powerful green laser. It struck the unsuspecting Bald Overlord. Ah! Bald Overlord howled as he flew backward. Chong Fanb and Sour Stink turned, glaring at Ben10. Let me show you what a real circus performance is. Ben10 laughed, feeling the 360-degree, no blind spot vision on his body. Meanwhile, inside the circus, Tian Xiaoyan and the other two were enveloped in red sky energy, appearing almost invisible. The machine behind Samboso had also started, extracting people's joy. Because he was currently joyful himself, the fluctuations temporarily prevented him from noticing Tian Xiaoyan and their anomaly. Tian Xiaoyan simplified and reformed some information before telling the two of them. Gwen Tennyson was the first to cover her mouth in disbelief and say, "What? Big brother, are you serious? That machine behind him is a joy extractor that harms people. It can absorb people's joy. And it almost harmed us." She hadn't expected a trip to the circus to become so serious. Really? Xiao Yan. Are you sure you're not mistaken? Tian Mark heard this and, observing the unusual behavior of the people around him, said with a frown. Of course. When have I ever lied to you? And if it weren't for my sky energy covering us, the three of us would probably be like these guys, laughing foolishly and having our joy sucked away. Tian Xiaoyan shrugged, pointing to a man beside him who was constantly laughing. Then hurry up and defeat him now. Gwen Tennyson questioned loudly, looking at Tian Xiaoyan's unperturbed demeanor. I can defeat him now, but I want to give little Ban a chance to train, so Grandpa, and Xiao Wen. You two help me out first, Tian Xiaoyan said with a cheerful shrug, then leaned in and whispered a few words to them. Both of them were somewhat amazed after hearing the whole story. Little Ban is actually afraid of this clown. I knew he was acting strange all night, so that's why. Although somewhat disbelieving, Gwen Tennyson nodded, recalling Ben10's behavior that night. Xiao Yan. If we do as you say, will it really work? Tian Mark still asked with some unease after hearing Tian Xiaoyan's plan. Don't worry, Grandpa. I've mastered my sky energy very well, constructing a few virtual human bodies is no problem. But Grandpa, this will require your acting skills. Tian Xiaoyan said calmly, manipulating red energy in his hand. Good. If it's for little Ban's training, then let's do it. Tian Mark said with a smile. Tian Xiaoyan nodded, then used the red sky energy to temporarily hide himself and Gwen Tennyson. Finally, he dispersed a red protective shield around Tian Mark. Then, with a flick of his finger, two identical bodies of Gwen Tennyson and Tian Xiaoyan appeared, their eyes glowing red, laughing stiffly, and clapping their arms. I'll take Xiao Wen and go first. I'll leave it to you, Grandpa, Tian Xiaoyan said, giving a thumbs up to Tian Mark, who was forcing a smile. Tian Mark smiled and nodded. Meanwhile, down below, Samboso was enjoying the people's laughter, but Bald Overlord walked in, looking disheveled. Boss, there's a situation. Bald Overlord said to Samboso, trembling slightly. Samboso heard this, turned, and looked at him coldly. Didn't you see I'm busy? How many times have I told you? Don't disturb me while I'm enjoying my meal. Although Bald Overlord was very afraid of Samboso, he still told Samboso that Ben10 had beaten the three of them badly. After hearing this, Samboso frowned slightly, but still followed Bald Overlord outside. Bang! Sour Stink, who was punched away by Ben10, lay sprawled on a car, stars swirling around his face. Ah ah ah! On the other side, Chong Fanb, half frozen by a freezing ray from Ben Tennyson, struggled desperately but to no avail. Ha 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 ha. You losers. You're all trash, where did that big guy go? Ben Tennyson cheered with his arms raised, looking for Bald Overlord. But then, a voice he didn't want to hear again reappeared beside him. Do you have any opinions about my subordinates, guy? A cold voice came from behind Ben Tennyson. He saw Samboso standing behind him with a strange smile, while Bald Overlord stood not far away, watching them. He said, you're good at tricks. Let me see if you're really that impressive. Samboso charged forward with a strange smile, swinging his fists. Bang! Due to his inner fear, Ben Tennyson's body was initially frozen. He was completely unprepared as Samboso punched him away. But it wasn't over yet. Samboso leapt into the air and kicked Ben Tennyson's head with a whip kick. Ben Tennyson, mouth agape and unable to move, was kicked away again. Ha 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 ha. You don't have much skill either, do you? Samboso grinned, looking at Ben Tennyson lying on the ground. Too many clowns. At this moment, Ben Tennyson, thanks to iGuy's 360-degree excellent vision, saw Samboso's laughing face split into countless terrifying images. Quote ? This guy really beat you guys to a pulp. Are you not making fun of me? Samboso looked at Ben Tennyson, who appeared scared and startled. He didn't look at all like the brave warrior Bald Overlord described, and turned to Bald Overlord, saying, he clearly wasn't like this just now. Bald Overlord also didn't know why Ben Tennyson was acting this way. Forget it, at least don't waste time. Samboso shrugged and pulled a bottle of green spray paint from his sleeve. And Ben Tennyson, in fact, happened to fall into a wooden structure. Samboso pressed the spray paint, and green corrosive material came out. It hit directly. Bang! 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 Countless pieces of wood fell towards Ben Tennyson. In an instant, Ben Tennyson was covered by the wood. How boring. Samboso spat, feeling a little bored, then turned his head and shouted to Bald Overlord, get them ready, we still have things to do. Yes, boss, Bald Overlord replied, seemingly a little scared, then turned to his two partners and began the rescue. After a while, Ben Tennyson also transformed back to his human form from iGuy. He emerged from the ruins, panting, and said, that clown. And those three oddballs are all villains. Grandpa, Xiao Wen, and Big Brother. He then thought of Tian Xiaoyan, realizing they were still in the circus, and, ignoring his inner fear, quickly rushed towards them. Perhaps due to overwhelming fear, he had forgotten that Tian Xiaoyan hardly needed him to worry. But when he arrived at the circus, the original venue was gone, leaving only the surrounding people laughing foolishly. What? Ben Tennyson looked around and found Tian Mark sitting on the steps, head down, eyes closed, still laughing. Grandpa. Ben Tennyson looked at Tian Mark, who was alone, in surprise. He shook Tian Mark a few times, who was still laughing. This made him regain a bit of consciousness, pretending, little Ban, hee. Where did you run off to? He was still laughing. You're asking me. Where did the circus go? Ben Tennyson said loudly, spreading his hands in disbelief. I don't know. Tian Mark looked around with a bewildered expression. Then he turned to Ben Tennyson, and the corners of his mouth unconsciously curled up again. We remember we were always laughing. It was so funny, he said, then closed his eyes. Grandpa. Ben Tennyson saw this scene and put his hand on Tian Mark's shoulder, worried. I always feel so sad. Tian Mark said with a somewhat bitter expression at this moment. But the corners of his mouth unconsciously curled into a smile again. But you're still laughing. Wait. Where are Big Brother and Xiao Wen? Ben Tennyson rubbed his head in confusion, but at this moment, he realized something was wrong and, looking up, asked Tian Mark. I'm not sure. I always feel like I got separated from them. Let's get in the car quickly. Tian Mark's eyes darted around, then he dragged his tired steps, leading Ben Tennyson into the old RV. On the other side, Samboso was driving a black truck with the three oddballs. On the main road. Did you prepare any snacks for me? Samboso turned to Bald Overlord and smiled. Bald Overlord chuckled. Then he pulled back the curtain behind him, revealing a group of people laughing. Gwen Tennyson and Tian Xiaoyan's dolls could be seen, also laughing along. Samboso must have used the performance to turn everyone into zombies. But why kidnap Xiao Wen and Big Brother? And what is Big Brother doing? How could he be captured by them? Ben Tennyson analyzed the situation, then scratched his head loudly in disbelief. In his heart, Tian Xiaoyan could perfectly solve any problem, so why would someone like him be captured by such a guy? Tian Mark then slowly said, maybe it was an accident. But don't worry, we'll catch the clown. But at this moment, his eye bags unconsciously sagged. Yeah, who's afraid of what? A boring, stupid clown. Ben Tennyson heard this, then began to feign calmness, turning his head aside and laughing. Little Ben, what exactly are you bothered by? Tian Mark also felt it was time and said to Ben Tennyson. You can't laugh at me. I'm really scared of clowns. I just tremble all over when I see them. It's so lame, Ben Tennyson said, expressing his situation in his tone, finally lowering his head weakly. Everyone has something they're afraid of. When I was young, I had severe acrophobia. But I still worked hard to overcome it. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. Scare away the fear. As Tian Mark spoke, his arm unconsciously relaxed, then, under Ben Tennyson's shocked gaze, he lowered his head. Ben Tennyson quickly gripped the steering wheel in surprise. Bang! Just then, a red flat board supported the movement under the car. It stopped the somewhat erratically moving old RV. Oh, good, it stopped, Ben Tennyson said with a sigh of relief, thinking he had done it. Because the flat board was too small, he didn't see it. Little Ben. I'm sorry, I might be a little tired. The clown took away everyone's joy. Only sad bodies remain. Tian Mark said, opening his eyes again at this moment. He also captured Xiao Wen. And Big Brother. Ben Tennyson remembered something at this moment, saying with wide eyes. Grandpa, you stay here. I'll go save them. Ben Tennyson finally gritted his teeth and made up his mind. Then he turned his watch and slapped it. Transforming into Fast Flash Star, he took out a piece of cloth from the cabinet and covered the unconscious Tian Mark, then put on his X mask, activated the rollers on his feet, and rushed in Samboso's direction. Hee hee. It seems my acting skills aren't bad, Tian Mark said, opening his eyes full of vigor after Ben Tennyson left, laughing. At the same time, he gave a thumbs up to a certain direction in the sky. Little Ben has indeed grown. Big Brother, your plan is good. Gwen Tennyson looked at Ben Tennyson's mature behavior, somewhat surprised but mostly happy, praising Tian Xiaoyan. Of course. All right, it's about time we went to help him finish up, Tian Xiaoyan shrugged, then led Gwen Tennyson slowly down into the old RV. Meanwhile, Ben Tennyson finally found Samboso's location. To fully charge his watch, he took a deep breath, and the watch surprisingly flashed green, turning him back. Big Brother really didn't lie to me, this really can turn me back. Ben Tennyson said in amazement, looking at his human body. Tian Xiaoyan had once told Ben Tennyson some details about the Omnitrix and had even transformed into a Gavin Star person to slightly modify the Omnitrix. However, Ben Tennyson had no patience and had never succeeded in such an operation before, but now he finally succeeded. Ben Tennyson looked at the watch, which was still charging, his eyes flickering, then he approached the box behind him. He slowly advanced towards the tent, but he noticed that the three oddballs seemed to be tidying something up. Bang! But at that moment, Ben Tennyson, by coincidence, stepped on a branch, and he stared wide-eyed at the branch he had broken. Only then will someone want to watch a four-arms show. Chong Fanb, from the Freak Trio, put down everything and said with a smile. Ha ha ha. Sour Stink took off the protective mask from his mouth and sneered. Bald Overlord also waved his fists and slowly walked towards Ben Tennyson's location. Hurry up. Ben Tennyson looked at the watch in his hand, which was still charging, and said nervously. Just as the Freak Trio was about to mess with the wooden box behind him, the watch finally finished charging. He rotated the watch, pressed it down, and a green light flashed. The Freak Trio looked at the green light in surprise. Immediately after, a large red brute jumped out. Four arms appeared. What are you? Bald Overlord once again asked the same question as before. Before, it was a whack with eyes all over, but now it was a guy with 4 arms and 4 eyes on his face. I am your father, Ben Tennyson said seriously. He then quickly rushed over and punched Bald Overlord in the face, causing Bald Overlord Face to directly indent and send him flying backward. Oh, that's enough. How many times are you going to get knocked down today? Chong Fanv was the first to complain about her teammates' uselessness. Ah. Bald Overlord could only express his situation with a wail at this moment. Who cares, kill this guy. Sour Stink directly yelled at Chong Fanv next to him. Then he jumped into the air and spat out green smoke, aiming at Ben10. Seeing this, Ben10 forcefully pulled out a stone slab from the ground with his hand. He held it in front of him, temporarily resisting the corrosive attack of the green smoke. Ha! Chong Fanv manipulated her red hair. She directly bound Ben10's arms. She even tried to pull him aside. Ah! Ben10 pulled hard, and at this moment, he noticed Sour Stink next to him trying to sneak attack him. His eyes flashed as he forcefully grabbed Chong Fanv's hair, forming a meteor hammer that struck Sour Stink, who was trying to sneak attack him. Then he jumped from the air and forcefully hit the ground, creating a shockwave that hit the two freaks still on the ground. Making them temporarily unconscious, he looked at Bald Overlord, who was almost waking up again. He grabbed a box from the side and smashed it over. Bang! Poor Bald Overlord. He was brutally beaten once again. At this moment, Ben10 also reverted from his transformation due to overexertion, but his eyes were now unusually firm as he looked towards where Samboso was. After taking a deep breath, he walked towards Samboso's tent. As soon as he entered, he heard a strange laugh, which made his hair stand on end. Looks like you really want to play with me, kid. Samboso's large yellow face suddenly appeared from above, looking at Ben10 with a strange laugh. Ah! Ben10 was startled and fell to the ground first. Then he bravely stood up again and glared at Samboso. Oh. Interesting, it seems you came with a purpose. Let's play a game. As long as you can catch me, I'll give you what you want, Samboso said with a smile, his eyes rolling, as if he had found something amusing. Then, Ben10's surroundings changed, and he felt himself sitting in a car. Samboso was in the car opposite. Come chase me. Samboso drove the car at maximum horsepower with a strange laugh. Ben10, not to be outdone, stepped on the gas and followed. During this journey, Samboso unconsciously scared Ben10. Ben10 was startled repeatedly by him, but he still held on with great conviction. Finally, he drove to a place with a hole. Samboso suddenly appeared and kicked his car. Causing him to fall down, Ben10's body twisted in the air. He gritted his teeth as he looked at the smooth ground below. He got into position. Bang! Finally, he landed safely, kneeling on the ground. Hello. Samboso appeared behind him again, with a huge pipe inserted into him. Behind him was connected the joy extractor. Looking at Samboso at this moment, Ben10, who had some courage, widened his eyes and unconsciously retreated. You use that machine to extract people's joy. Samboso looked at Ben10 mockingly, hearing his question. That's right. This is the joy extractor, isn't it a great thing? Next, I will perform in various cities. Then I will extract their joy. Just like a sponge absorbing water. Samboso frantically told Ben10 his crazy idea. Smile. Ha 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 ha. Samboso laughed loudly as he looked at Ben10's expression. Give back my cousin and my brother. Ben10 finally remembered something at this moment, raising his head and glaring at Samboso. Oh. Don't you know? They ran away from home, abandoned by the circus. Samboso pretended to be shocked at this moment, then shouted and pointed at the empty space next to him. Haha, at this moment, two figures, like dried up people, were laughing in the empty space. What? Ben10 looked at everything in front of him in disbelief. It was as if a string had snapped in his mind. The string called reason. When he looked up again, he was filled with rage, staring at Samboso. Oh, that's so funny. I'll make you stop laughing. Under Samboso's mocking gaze, Ben10 calmly rotated his watch, then pressed it down. After a green light flashed, Ghostfreak appeared. Looking at Ben10's ghostly appearance, Samboso was somewhat shocked, but he still shrugged and said indifferently. You're not bad, kid. But it's useless, I'm not afraid of you. Ben10 thought for a moment after hearing this. Then he said to Samboso, you know what? I just remembered something that scares me more than watching a clown show. After speaking, he raised his fist and directly punched Samboso. Samboso flew backward. He looked around cautiously, seeing Ben10 disappear. It's you, this perverted clown, hurting my family. In other words, you're finished, clown. Ben10's cold and angry voice came from all around. Immediately after, Samboso saw a wooden board flying through the air, directly hitting his face. Bang! Perhaps because of too much force. Samboso was directly sent flying by Ben10 with a wooden board into the interior of the joy extractor. And it was smashed. In an instant, countless people's joy flew out from the machine, returning to everyone in the town. I advise you not to meddle. Samboso looked at his hard work completely disappearing. He glared angrily at Ben10, who had reappeared. Do you want to know what's most terrifying? Ben10 didn't answer him but spoke to himself. Finally, under Samboso's surprised gaze, Ben10 placed his hands on his chest. Then he pulled himself open, revealing countless black and white tentacles. Samboso saw the scene inside, fell backward in fear, and then shriveled into the corner. Please don't come over. Listening to Samboso's pleading tone, Ben10 laughed strangely. Are you afraid of me, this old ghost freak? Ha ha ha. Just as Ben10 was about to act on Samboso again, a burst of laughter came. Well done, little Ban. You've really opened my eyes. Ben10 heard this familiar tone and turned to see Tien Xiaoyan. Gwen Tennyson. Tien Mark. The three of them slowly walked down the stairs. What's going on? You're not. What is that? Ben10 looked at them frantically. Then he looked at the still giggling puppets next to him. He asked frantically. It's like this. Tien Xiaoyan comforted him and explained patiently. After the explanation, Ben10 stared wide-eyed in disbelief. So I've been busy for half a day. Worrying for half a day. It turns out it was all your plan, brother. Tien Xiaoyan rubbed his head and laughed. Oh, don't say that. Little Ban. Xiaoyan's intentions are good. And you're not afraid of clowns now, are you? Tien Mark also stepped forward to explain for Tien Xiaoyan. But even so, you still have to compensate me. Ben10 looked at Samboso, who was still shriveled in the corner. He was indeed not afraid. But he still expressed his dissatisfaction to Tien Xiaoyan. Once I'm done, I will definitely compensate you. Please wait patiently. Tien Xiaoyan also knew that this was the time to give him a way out. He sincerely promised. All right. Ben10 saw that Tien Xiaoyan was no longer pursuing the matter. Dummy. You got a bargain and are still acting coy. Gwen Tennyson just crossed her arms and laughed. Hey. I also put in a lot of effort, okay. And Ben10 wanted to argue when he heard this. Snap. Gwen Tennyson, however, stepped forward and hugged him. Ben10 was suddenly at a loss. But, thank you for worrying about us. Little Ban. Gwen Tennyson said with a smile. Tien Mark also placed his hand on his shoulder at this moment, looking at him gently. Of course, Ben10's cheeks rarely turned red at this moment. He accepted without resistance. Ha ha. It's your turn next. Tien Xiaoyan watched all this with a smile. Then he looked at Samboso with a wicked smile. What do you want? Samboso clearly felt that the other party was not someone to be trifled with, and he said fearfully. I want. Tien Xiaoyan was just about to manipulate sky energy for a real fight. But he found that the ultimatrix in his hand began to emit yellow light again. Ding! A matching character has been detected. Unlocking the next hero's usage qualification. After the watch said these words again, it returned to normal. Tien Xiaoyan turned around and found a slightly chubby figure. I didn't expect it to be him. He really knows how to pick his time, Tien Xiaoyan said with a strange laugh. Then, under everyone's gaze, he rotated the watch and pressed it down. After a red light flashed, an alien with a protective device on its head and an appearance like a Shrek appeared. He was Toby. Ah, what kind of guy is that? Samboso looked at Tien Xiaoyan's strange appearance. He cried out in horror, because he instinctively felt that the guy in front of him made his body tremble uncontrollably. Ha ha. Don't you like to see others fear? Let me see how brave you are. Tien Xiaoyan came in front of Samboso with a strange laugh. Then, under Samboso's horrified gaze, he opened his protective helmet. After Samboso saw the contents inside, His eyes widened completely, as if they were about to pop out. His lips trembled uncontrollably, and he screamed. Wow! Then, his entire body turned a miserable white. He fainted. Brother, what did you show him? Ben10 asked, looking at Samboso, whose reaction was even more intense than before. Nothing. Let's go quickly, the police will be here soon. We already called them earlier. Tian Xiaoyan put on his helmet and turned his head with a smile. As for what was really there, Samboso should know best. After a while, Samboso and the three freaks were all arrested by the police. Ben10 and the others also spent a safe night. But just as Tian Xiaoyan was sleeping, he noticed Gwen Tennyson acting a little strange. He came to her side and asked, Sis, what's wrong? Is something on your mind? Ah, so it's you. It's just a small problem. Gwen Tennyson, who thought it was Ben10 who came to her side, was about to say that nothing was wrong. After realizing it was Tian Xiaoyan, she didn't hide it and spoke out. It turned out that she had always envied Ben10 and Tian Xiaoyan's series of crime-fighting activities after transforming. Tian Mark also occasionally helped Tian Xiaoyan and the others with his exquisite skills. Unlike her, she felt useless. Xiao Wen, have you always cared about this? Tian Xiaoyan said in surprise. Isn't that right? Brother, you having strange superpowers makes me even more envious, Gwen Tennyson sighed, resting her face on her hand. Don't worry. Xiao Wen. Your opportunity will come very soon, I promise you. Gwen Tennyson's somewhat dejected expression gave Tian Xiaoyan a headache, and he immediately thought that in Ben10, Gwen Tennyson seemed to become a lucky girl. From that time, Gwen Tennyson had already changed. Really? Gwen Tennyson looked up in surprise and said. Have I ever lied to you? Tian Xiaoyan once again uttered his famous line. Thank you, big brother. Gwen Tennyson gratefully hugged Tian Xiaoyan and returned to bed. Sigh. Who knows when it will appear? Grabbing corpse, you'd better appear quickly. Tian Xiaoyan said helplessly, covering his head. At the same time, in a cave, a figure in a black robe said solemnly, Akamida's spell book, I must obtain you. After speaking, he tapped the ground with his magic staff. Tian Xiaoyan and his companions arrived at a large house that resembled a peculiar museum. The lead tour guide explained to the crowd, the item displayed in the glass case before you is the unique and most significant discovery, the priceless tome of Akamida's spells. Its contents record, the tour guide was about to continue when Gwen Tennyson was the first to answer. Its contents record all ancient witchcraft and magic spells since the 15th century. Both of them seemed to have spoken the contents simultaneously. I think you should be the tour guide, little sister. The tour guide said, displeased. In this day and age, someone was actually trying to steal a tour guide's job. She then slowly walked away, while Gwen Tennyson had an innocent expression. Xiao Wen. Don't mind her, it's just that your knowledge is too profound, and she's just jealous. Tian Xiaoyan said to Gwen Tennyson with a smile. Exactly. That old lady might be even older than that tome, blah. Ben Tennyson also said with a look of agreement from the side, even comically sticking out his tongue. Ha ha ha, thank you both. Gwen Tennyson's bad mood from earlier instantly cleared up. Tian Xiaoyan also chuckled a few times, then turned his gaze towards the tome. If I could take a look, maybe I could learn some magic, but should I just forget about it? After all, it's not mine. After an internal struggle, Tian Xiaoyan still helplessly spread his hands. Just then, everyone present was controlled by a strange force, slowly floating into the air. Tian Xiaoyan felt his body change and looked closely, and sure enough, grabbing corpse, wearing his large black robe and holding his magic staff, slowly walked over. Tian Xiaoyan hesitated for a moment, deciding to wait and see. I have a premonition, this isn't a performance, Tian Mark said firmly, his body pressed against the ceiling. Grabbing corpse walked to the display case and said coldly, the tome of Akamida's spells, the magic it possesses will be mine. Bonehead, you're dreaming. Ben Tennyson yelled from the sky, trying to turn his watch. Grabbing corpse turned his head, and suddenly everyone in the sky was about to fall. Ah! Just as everyone screamed, Ben Tennyson and Tian Xiaoyan simultaneously turned their watches. After a flash of red and green light, Diamond Head and Ice Ghost appeared. Ha! Tian Xiaoyan was the first to spit out a layer of ice platform in the sky to catch everyone. Watch me. Ben Tennyson landed on the ground first, placing his hand into the earth. Countless crystals formed a cylindrical shape, steadily catching the platform. Bang! Everyone landed steadily on the platform. Then, using inertia, they slid down. Grandpa. Xiao Wen. You two go first, leave this to me and my older brother, Ben Tennyson said, turning his head. Xiao Yan. Little Ban. Be careful, Tian Mark worriedly instructed, then led Gwen Tennyson towards the exit. On the other side, the cold air Tian Xiaoyan exhaled directly attacked Grabbing Corpse. Grabbing Corpse's eyes flashed yellow, and he chanted a magic spell. His hand directly shot out flames in retaliation. Bang! Two incompatible energies directly collided, causing some fluctuations, but it was clear that Tian Xiaoyan was at a disadvantage. Hey! Ben Tennyson quickly stepped forward and was the first to launch a crystal spike. When Grabbing Corpse saw it, his magic staff glowed with yellow light. He shot out a ray that directly melted Ben Tennyson's attack. It also sent Ben Tennyson flying. Little Ban. Tian Xiaoyan was somewhat distracted when he saw Ben Tennyson. Ha! Grabbing Corpse seized the opportunity, increased the output of flames in his hand, and directly erupted with surging energy, covering Tian Xiaoyan. Tian Xiaoyan tumbled in the air, finally landing on the ground. Grabbing Corpse walked forward, holding the tome, and said coldly, "Your tricks are quite interesting. But you still can't defeat me." Tian Xiaoyan heard this, his eyes darted around, and he sneered, "That's not necessarily true." He then slapped the symbol on his chest. After a flash of red light, Tian Xiaoyan reappeared before Grabbing Corpse in his human form. HMPH, have you decided to surrender? Grabbing Corpse scoffed with disdain. Surrender. Those two words aren't in my dictionary. Tian Xiaoyan smirked, and then, under Grabbing Corpse's somewhat surprised gaze, a red energy substance appeared in his hand. Ha! Tian Xiaoyan was the first to hit Grabbing Corpse's chest with a red ray. Bang! You also possess magic. Grabbing Corpse stood up from the wall, speaking in disbelief. This is sky energy. Idiot. Although I don't know if you recognize it, you won't be walking out of here standing up. Tian Xiaoyan's eyes flashed with red light. His body slowly floated up as he smirked. Seeing this, Grabbing Corpse chanted another spell, and countless shattered stones rose from behind him. They flew towards Tian Xiaoyan at lightning speed. The red energy in Tian Xiaoyan's hand transformed into a sword. He dodged in the sky, and occasionally used the sword to shatter the stones. Just as Tian Xiaoyan was flipping and dodging, Grabbing Corpse chanted an even more powerful magic spell, and his staff gathered intense light. After rotating the staff once, Grabbing Corpse condensed a powerful ray and shot it at him. But at that moment, a scene that shocked Grabbing Corpse occurred. Tian Xiaoyan slowly turned around, and the red energy in his hand condensed. Tian Xiaoyan also chanted the same spell as Grabbing Corpse just used, and then the red energy in his hand, with a hint of electric light, surged forth, impacting the energy Grabbing Corpse had fired. This is impossible, how did you learn the explosion spell so quickly? Grabbing Corpse asked in disbelief while countering the energy. Oh, so that was the explosion spell. I'm also very skilled at manipulating energy. I just didn't expect that just trying to chant it would release it so easily. It seems magic isn't that difficult after all, Tian Xiaoyan said jokingly, his hands also in a defensive posture. Boom. Yellow and red fluctuations caused huge ripples throughout the museum. Tian Mark and Gwen Tennyson watched anxiously from outside the museum. Just then, Ben Tennyson, who had been knocked unconscious by Grabbing Corpse, finally woke up. Looking at the scene before him, he opened his mouth in shock. Wow! Big Brother is so cool. Ben Tennyson said in surprise, then noticed Grabbing Corpse, who was concentrating on fighting Tian Xiaoyan. Hehehe, Ben Tennyson chuckled strangely, then slowly walked towards Grabbing Corpse. Ah! Just as Grabbing Corpse was about to increase his magic output, Ben Tennyson patted him on the shoulder from behind. Hi! Grabbing Corpse turned his head and saw Ben Tennyson's harmless face and his large crystal hand. Bang! Grabbing Corpse was directly sent flying, and a bezel magic pendant stone on his chest also fell off. This battle was won by Ben Tennyson's sneak attack. Oh yeah! Sneak attack successful. Ben Tennyson stood in place, striking a victory pose. Sneak attack, and you're still so calm. Tian Xiaoyan floated down from the sky, looking at Ben Tennyson in surprise. Something seems off. How about a righteous group beatdown? Ben Tennyson also felt it didn't quite fit his character. He thought for a moment, then turned to Tian Xiaoyan and said. A little weird, but I like it, Tian Xiaoyan said with a smile. He then looked at the bezel magic pendant stone that had fallen to the ground and picked it up. He could vaguely feel the powerful magic emanating from within. This will be a gift for Xiao Wen, Tian Xiaoyan said with a smile. However, when he then looked at the unconscious grabbing corpse and the other few magic pendant stone chains on his chest, he swallowed. If he took all of these now, would the plot of this episode be over? However, just as he was thinking this, Gwen Tennyson and Tian Mark walked in from outside. Well done, Xiao Yan, little Ban, Tian Mark praised. We're just doing what we're supposed to, and being a bit low-key, Ben Tennyson surprisingly said this, a phrase even he didn't believe. Then, yay! Awesome! Heroes! Instantly, countless people took out cameras, snapping photos of Ben Tennyson, who was still in his alien form, cheering loudly. I knew it would be like this. Tian Xiaoyan, still in human form, was not counted among those who had just saved them. That blockhead really loves to get carried away. Gwen Tennyson said, frowning in displeasure. Sitting in the old RV, the group drove on. Gwen Tennyson was the first to speak to the overly excited Ben Tennyson, displeased. Why do you always get so carried away? Today, we defeated that perverted wizard. My older brother also helped. But he didn't get carried away like you. Gwen Tennyson said sternly. But there was always a hint of sourness in her tone. Haha, being a hero isn't about attracting attention. Besides, my older brother is too laid back, he basically doesn't care about these things, you wouldn't know. Ben Tennyson said teasingly, crossing his arms. Tian Xiaoyan, sitting in the front seat, immediately turned his head to look at Ben Tennyson. Haha, Ben Tennyson realized he had said something wrong and quickly turned his head away. I really envy how you two can enjoy being the center of attention, while I can't. Gwen Tennyson also revealed her true feelings at this moment, saying somewhat dejectedly. Sigh. Don't be so angry. You and Grandpa have always helped my older brother. We all pay attention to you, you know, Ben Tennyson also patiently consoled her. Gwen Tennyson, however, pouted and said nothing. All right. Xiao Wen. Here, this is for you, don't be angry. Tian Xiaoyan then threw the magic pendant stone in his hand to Gwen Tennyson. This is. Gwen Tennyson looked at the magic pendant stone in her hand in surprise. I took it from Mr. Strange Wizard. Maybe it has some magic, but it might not be usable right now. Still, it's a good experience to have. Tian Xiaoyan patiently explained. Okay, at least I have something to comfort me. Gwen Tennyson's mood also improved slightly. Xiao Wen. Shouldn't you thank Xiao Yan and Little Ban? Tian Mark turned his head and said with a smile. Oh, right, thank you all. Gwen Tennyson reacted upon hearing this and showed a sweet smile. You're welcome, Ben Tennyson and Tian Xiaoyan replied simultaneously. Meanwhile, at the scene, grabbing corpse, who had been deemed possibly mentally deranged, his eyelids twitched slightly in the ambulance. Finally, the remaining bezel magic pendant stone on his chest reacted, and grabbing corpse suddenly opened his eyes wide and exclaimed, my destiny is about to change. Boom. In an instant, the ambulance was directly blown to pieces, and grabbing corpse slowly rose into the air, then floated away. At the same time, something also happened to Tian Xiaoyan and his group who were eating at a restaurant. Gwen Tennyson had made the bezel magic pendant stone into a pendant and wore it around her neck. They were having an all-shrimp feast. Gwen Tennyson held a fork, staring at the last remaining shrimp. Ben Tennyson had the same gaze. Gwen Tennyson pointed her fork at Ben Tennyson and questioned, I've been counting. My older brother ate 5, Grandpa also ate 5, I ate 6, and you ate 8. Ben Tennyson shrugged upon hearing this. Then I'll just make it a full dozen. Ben Tennyson wickedly aimed his fork at the last shrimp. Whack! Gwen Tennyson, quick as a flash, used a hand chop to hit Ben Tennyson's hand, also knocking his fork away. She said with a smile, you wish. But at the same time, the magic pendant stone on her chest glowed yellow. Tian Xiaoyan raised an eyebrow when he saw this. Looks like there's a show to watch. The fork Ben10 dropped first hit the female waitress's leg, causing her to cry out in pain and drop the water glass in her hand. The flying water glass then spun around the overhead chandelier and flew into the kitchen, hitting the chef on the back. The chef also reacted, kicking backward, and managed to kick away the cart with a pot of live shrimp that he was carrying. After this chain reaction, the cart full of live shrimp rushed out of the kitchen door, heading directly towards Tian Xiaoyan and his group. Tian Xiaoyan was the first to move out of the way, and then, under Ben10's disbelieving gaze, the pot of live shrimp directly smashed onto his head. Tian Mark also looked in surprise at Ben10, who had fallen victim to the chain reaction. I really. Ben10 said with a bitter face, a pot of live shrimp on his head. Alright. I'm full. Gwen Tennyson, on the other hand, easily peeled and ate the last shrimp, laughing at Ben10's appearance. Looks like he's not full yet. Ben10 said with a bitter face, taking the shrimp pot off his head. However, at that moment, a small live shrimp quietly crawled into his nostril. Ah! Ben10 immediately struggled and fell to the ground. Ha 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 ha. Tian Mark, Gwen Tennyson, and Tian Xiaoyan burst out laughing. Gwen Tennyson also noticed the magic pendant stone on her chest glowing yellow, but it then dissipated. She turned a questioning gaze to Tian Xiaoyan, who was laughing beside her. Tian Xiaoyan noticed Gwen Tennyson and winked with a smile. Wow! Thank you so much. Gwen Tennyson also knew that the magic pendant stone really had magic, and mouthed a thank you. Bang! At the memorial hall before, Grabbing Corpse was looking for the Archimeda spellbook. Finally, he impatiently grabbed a security guard and asked, "Where is the Archimeda spellbook?" Grabbing Corpse's terrifying tone directly scared the security guard, who stammered that it was in the vault. Grabbing Corpse arrived at the vault, muttering a spell, and with a gentle shake, the vault door was directly broken open. Grabbing Corpse took out the spellbook from inside. He observed the contents and said with a laugh, "Excellent. This is great, my magic power will be invincible." A yellow energy object appeared from the spellbook and directly struck Grabbing Corpse. The magical energy within Grabbing Corpse's body surged even more, but then suddenly stopped. Grabbing Corpse looked down in confusion and found that one of the magic pendants on his chest was missing. Oh, right, I lost one when fighting that magic kid. Grabbing Corpse fumed when he thought of Tian Xiaoyan. On the other side, Tian Xiaoyan walked out of the restaurant. Tian Mark laughed at Ben10. I've lived this long, and it's the first time I've seen a crayfish crawl out of someone's nostril. Ha ha ha. Such teasing words made Tian Xiaoyan and Gwen Tennyson, who were nearby, laugh along. Ha ha. Very funny, but it's good if I can make you laugh, Grandpa, Ben10 said helplessly. Big Brother was really right. This pendant really has magic. Gwen Tennyson said again at this moment. Magic. Wait, does this mean what just happened was caused by this pendant? Ben10 said a few confused words. Only then did he realize that his earlier reaction was because of this pendant. I saw this in an ancient book, the magic pendant chain, it possesses powerful magic. And this one is a unique lucky magic pendant. It can grant people great luck. Tian Xiaoyan casually found an excuse to gloss over it. No wonder you're so lucky, Ben10 pouted, looking at Gwen Tennyson. However, at this moment, a group of robbers snatched an old woman's bag. Then, incorrigibly, they tried to snatch the magic pendant from Gwen Tennyson's chest. You've messed with the wrong people. I'm not just a simple girl anymore, Gwen Tennyson said with a smile, looking at the magic pendant on her chest, which was glowing yellow again. Immediately after, due to the magic power generated by the lucky magic pendant, Gwen Tennyson, relying on a series of chain reactions, easily knocked down a group of robbers. This girl is a hero. Officer, the old lady whose bag was snatched said with a smile about Gwen Tennyson's actions. Me. I'm just lucky. Gwen Tennyson felt everyone's gaze turned towards her and smiled, rubbing her head. Xiao Wen. You're really enjoying yourself now. Tian Mark said calmly, looking at Gwen Tennyson, who was surrounded by the crowd and beaming with smiles. However, he was also very happy that his granddaughter could be so joyful. Why do I always feel like this scene is a bit familiar? Ben Tennyson said, somewhat sourly. Now you know how Xiao Wen feels, right? Tian Xiaoyan said, patting his head. At this moment, Gwen Tennyson's gaze suddenly landed on a mask shop. She had an idea in her mind. The next day, when Tian Xiaoyan and Ben Tennyson just woke up, they found that Gwen Tennyson was already playing basketball on a court early in the morning. And she was hitting every shot. Doing things now is simply great. Everything goes as I wish. Gwen Tennyson said with a smile, holding the basketball. Hey, if it weren't for that lucky magic pendant, you wouldn't be able to do any of these things, Ben Tennyson said sourly, feeling somewhat outdone for the first time. Well, if you didn't have your watch, you probably wouldn't be able to do these things either. Gwen Tennyson retorted without backing down. Alright, now our status can be considered equal. Isn't it great to be able to help others and fight crime together? Tian Xiaoyan said with a smile, putting his arm around Ben Tennyson. Okay. Alright. Ben Tennyson also realized that his complaining was a bit excessive now. He nodded, indicating agreement. Ha ha ha. Don't worry, if there are problems in the future, I'll help you too, Gwen Tennyson said, seeing that Ben Tennyson had no objections, casually tossing the basketball into the air, hitting the hoop, and sitting on a chair. Xiao Wen. Remember not to get too carried away, Tian Xiaoyan patiently told Gwen Tennyson. Gwen Tennyson nodded after hearing it. Don't worry, big brother. I'm not little Ben. Ben Tennyson heard this and immediately glared at her, displeased. Help. At this moment, a cry for help came from a distant construction site, with countless people gathered around. They looked closely. One person was trapped in a green car. The other two were suspended in the air by iron pillar tools. Time for the hero to appear. Ben Tennyson saw this scene, rotated his watch, and transformed into Super Energy Beast. He rushed up, jumping from one building to another. The protagonist isn't you now. Little Ben. Gwen Tennyson realized this was a good opportunity, turned, and walked into the car. After a while, Gwen Tennyson, wearing a cat mask and a purple leotard, appeared in front of Tian Xiaoyan. Little sister. Why are you wearing such strange clothes? Tian Xiaoyan said, raising an eyebrow. This is my hero costume. Now, please call me Lucky Girl. And it's none of your business, Gwen Tennyson said this Chunavu-like line. Only then did she realize Tian Xiaoyan was looking at her in surprise. She ran over, blushing. Tian Xiaoyan shook his head and laughed. Kids. Tian Mark also came out of the car at this moment, asking Tian Xiaoyan what happened. Don't worry, Grandpa, leave it to them, it'll be fine, Tian Xiaoyan said, stretching lazily and turning his head. At the same time, Gwen Tennyson, relying on her agile movements and the power unleashed by the magic pendant, through a chain reaction, used a crane and other unexpected tools. She rescued the 3 construction workers. The poor Ben Tennyson, who was struggling to climb above, was thrown into a cement truck. After struggling, he got out of it. How did you manage such miraculous actions? Ben Tennyson turned around and found a crowd of people surrounding Gwen Tennyson. And a reporter was interviewing Gwen Tennyson. By my agile movements. Who's the hero? Gwen Tennyson responded politely, then turned her head to Ben Tennyson and teased him. On the other side, Grabbing Corpse, who was searching for the magic pendant in the city, also saw Gwen Tennyson making grand statements on TV. My magic pendant. That brat. Grabbing Corpse stared wide-eyed at the lucky magic pendant on Gwen Tennyson's chest. However, as the camera slowly turned, he also saw Tian Xiaoyan standing next to Tian Mark and angrily cursed. On the other side, Gwen Tennyson and Ben Tennyson, who were a bit late, started arguing in the old RV. Gwen Tennyson believed that Ben Tennyson didn't intend to fight alongside her. He would only care about going forward by himself. Ben Tennyson just felt that ever since Gwen Tennyson got that magic pendant, she had become a bit arrogant and it should be taken back. Seeing this situation, Tian Xiaoyan didn't expect that giving the magic pendant to Gwen Tennyson with his own hands would cause such a big reaction. Oh, I need to think carefully from now on. Don't make too many changes. He realized that his actions might change the direction of the plot, but it could also lead to a bad outcome. Tian Xiaoyan quickly stepped forward and separated the two, patiently persuading them. Although the two no longer had a complete rift, the conflict had still been sown. Tian Xiaoyan had a headache seeing this. A strange thing happened. In a model haunted house in this city. More than a dozen tourists are trapped inside. The radio suddenly broadcast an emergency report. Tian Xiaoyan and the other two quickly turned to Tian Mark and said, "Grandpa." Tian Mark turned and nodded. Then, he accelerated the old RV towards the target point. Upon arriving near the haunted house, Tian Xiaoyan and his group quickly got out of the car. "Get out of the way, you arrogant fool." Gwen Tennyson, after changing her clothes, got out of the car and loudly said to Ben Tennyson, "Hey, I'm the real hero." Ben Tennyson heard this and said defiantly, "Sigh, you two really are." Tian Xiaoyan shook his head helplessly, and then they walked into the haunted house. Ah! Countless people in the haunted house screamed as the building shook. "I knew you would come." Lucky Girl and Magic Kid, grabbing corpse appeared above everyone in a particularly flamboyant pose at this moment. How long have you been holding that pose?" Tian Xiaoyan said, pinching his chin. Everyone who heard this looked at Tian Xiaoyan, embarrassed. Tian Xiaoyan shrugged, and grabbing corpse's veins bulged, perhaps angry because Tian Xiaoyan had directly broken his serious atmosphere. "I'll deal with him. You two go rescue the people first." Tian Xiaoyan also became serious, releasing sky energy from his hand. He floated into the sky to confront grabbing corpse. "Ha ha ha. You're not worthy of facing me when I'm serious, kid." Grabbing corpse also floated into the air, laughing as he looked at Tian Xiaoyan. "That's not necessarily true." Tian Xiaoyan practiced the magic spell he had secretly learned before. He shot a powerful explosive ray, aimed at grabbing corpse. Grabbing corpse's pupils glowed with light. He muttered a spell. After rotating his scepter, he formed a circle that absorbed the ray Tian Xiaoyan shot. Then, under Tian Xiaoyan's gaze, another circle appeared, directly reflecting the ray he had just shot back. Boom! Tian Xiaoyan flipped in the sky to dodge. But it still made an astonishing large hole in the roof. "I'm more familiar with mastering magic than you, kid," grabbing corpse said with a laugh. "Hee hee, you won't be laughing later." Tian Xiaoyan's eyes darted around as if he had some ideas, and he sneered. However, just as the two were fighting with magic in the sky below, Gwen Tennyson rushed out first, wanting to rescue the others. Grabbing corpse noticed that he had left a part of his power as a phantom below. The phantom exerted its power. As Gwen Tennyson stepped onto the stairs, it made the stairs shake violently and even fly into the air. Ah! Gwen Tennyson gripped the stair railing tightly and screamed. Xiao Wen, Ben Tennyson saw this scene. He quickly rotated the watch on his hand. After selecting a character, a green light flashed. 4 arms appeared. Ben Tennyson rushed to the center of the swirling wind. He grabbed half of the stairs, controlling Gwen Tennyson's position. "Are you okay?" Ben Tennyson asked, gripping the stairs tightly. "I'm fine, thank you." Gwen Tennyson also changed her previous attitude and thanked Ben Tennyson. "Watch out!" Tian Mark suddenly shouted a warning at this moment, and the two turned to see the phantom, now in a frenzied state, screaming and fluttering towards them. "Ah!" Gwen Tennyson cried out in surprise. However, at this moment, the lucky magic pendant began to exert its effect. "Ah! Help!" One person on the shaking left staircase accidentally stepped on an iron water pipe. The iron water pipe, using the inertia from the man's step, flew up. Bang! At this moment, Tian Xiaoyan and grabbing corpse's battle in the sky also randomly shot out magical energy. One of the energies shot by Tian Xiaoyan was dispersed by grabbing corpse. One of them happened to land on the iron water pipe. The iron water pipe was also flying wildly, controlled by sky energy at this moment. It was flying directly towards the phantom that was fluttering at Gwen Tennyson. In that instant, it hit the phantom in the head. Snap! Taking advantage of the phantom's momentary stiffness, Ben Tennyson charged up with both hands and punched him flying into the nearby building. "Wow! You're really lucky," Ben Tennyson said, turning around with a sigh of admiration. "Hee hee. Thank you," Gwen Tennyson said with a smile, touching her head. At this moment, grabbing corpse in the sky muttered, and a giant yellow energy gathered in his magic staff. Seeing this situation, Tian Xiaoyan also gathered the sky energy in his hand. Under the gaze of both, their concentrated energies directly collided. "You can't defeat me. With the magic pendants, I possess infinite power." Grabbing corpse muttered, and then, the several magic pendants on his chest simultaneously burst into light. With their help, grabbing corpse's magical energy surged. He struck Tian Xiaoyan flying with one blow. Ah! Then, how about this? Tian Xiaoyan flew at high speed in the air, finally rotating the Ultimatrix in his hand and transforming into Diamond Head, gathering a crystal plate behind him to block his retreat. Interesting. After I get my things back, it would be good to take your and that kid's watches for magic research, grabbing corpse said coldly, floating in front of Tian Xiaoyan. Hee. You won't succeed, Tian Xiaoyan still spoke with confidence, looking at grabbing corpse. Then he rushed forward. On the other side, Gwen Tennyson and the others, who were fighting the welcoming phantom, came outside. The phantom, with a screaming tone, cast a magic spell. Finally, a cloud of red smoke appeared in his hand under everyone's gaze. The smoke slowly drifted into the model stone monster dolls near this haunted house. Roar! In an instant, the monster dolls' eyes showed dazzling red light. They detached from the steps beneath their feet. Slowly stood up, glaring menacingly at Ben Tennyson and the others. Oh, this is annoying. Can anyone tell me? This guy is just a phantom, right? Ben Tennyson and Gwen Tennyson complained, back to back. Stop complaining and quickly take care of these guys to help Big Brother, Gwen Tennyson said, getting into position and warily watching the approaching beast puppets. This should work. Xiao Wen. You need to be careful of that guy. His target is the magic pendant stone on your chest, Tian Mark said, grabbing an iron rod and turning to instruct Gwen Tennyson. Don't worry, Grandpa. Gwen Tennyson replied with a smile. Then, they also charged forward. Ha! Ben Tennyson grabbed a beast puppet. He slammed it hard onto the ground, shattering it into stone fragments. Roar! A beast with ram horns charged forward and hugged Ben Tennyson. Just as Ben Tennyson was about to break free, he found another beast puppet also ran over. In Ben Tennyson's indignant gaze, it also hugged him, leaving Ben Tennyson in a tight embrace. Aha! Ben Tennyson unleashed his full strength, actually slowly lifting both of them. At that moment, Gwen Tennyson leapt into the air, directly throwing out two whip kicks at the beast puppets on Ben Tennyson. Surprisingly, they all shattered into stone fragments. Ben Tennyson looked at Gwen Tennyson in surprise, clearly seeing some yellow magic energy attached to her feet. It seems he brought me more than just luck, Gwen Tennyson said, looking at the lucky magic pendant on her chest with a smile. On the other side, Tian Mark used the iron rod in his hand to restrain a beast puppet. And kicked it flying into a downhill slope. Roar! Tian Mark now noticed a winged beast puppet. It roared and flew towards him. Tian Mark looked around for something and found a stone rod connected to a lamppost. He picked it up with force and looked at the beast puppet in front of him with a mischievous smile. Again. Ag, Tian Mark, muttering to himself, forcefully smashed the weapon in his hand at the beast puppet. Bang! The puppet directly turned into stone fragments. Tian Mark smiled at the fragments and said, it seems I've still got it. After Ben Tennyson and Gwen Tennyson knocked down most of the puppets, a flying puppet, a fish that had slipped through the net, charged towards them. Just as Gwen Tennyson was about to go teach him a lesson, Ben Tennyson stopped her, picked up a large stone sword from the side. He motioned to the beast. Roar! How could the beast tolerate this provocation? It roared and charged at him. Ben Tennyson's eyes widened. He swiftly swung the sword at it, critically striking and shattering it. Oh yeah, Ben Tennyson said with a smile, and Gwen Tennyson also marveled at his actions. Not bad, little Ben. It seemed the rift between them had been resolved. However, just then, she felt a murderous intent. Ah! The grabbing corpse, who had been lurking nearby, screamed and charged at Gwen Tennyson. It was so sudden that Ben Tennyson didn't have time to grab Ben Tennyson. She was grabbed by the grabbing corpse by both arms and flew into the sky. Xiao Wen. Ben Tennyson quickly ran, chasing after the grabbing corpse's steps. Ah! Gwen Tennyson screamed, struggling as the grabbing corpse held her arms. Aha! Ben Tennyson also burst out with strength at this moment, his muscles bulging. He jumped onto a tree, using the inertia of the branches, and with a leap, directly grabbed the grabbing corpse's foot. Then, when the grabbing corpse turned its head, Ben Tennyson punched him flying and reached out to grab Gwen Tennyson. Bang! They landed steadily on the ground. Tien Mark rushed over at this time. They all showed worried expressions, looking at Gwen Tennyson, who was lying in Ben Tennyson's arms with her eyes closed. What happened? Gwen Tennyson opened her eyes at this moment, saying somewhat wearily. Xiao Wen. You're all right, that's great, Tien Mark and Ben Tennyson both said with pleasant surprise. I'm fine. Wait. The magic pendant stone is gone, Gwen Tennyson replied to them with a smile, but then she found something missing from her chest. Looking down, the lucky magic pendant on her chest had disappeared. Ha 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 ha, at this moment, the grabbing corpse in the sky suddenly laughed a few times. Everyone looked up, and the lucky magic pendant was indeed in his hand. And just then, a dark green figure flew out from the forest. Ben Tennyson's eyes widened, and he saw it was Tian Xiaoyan, whose body was somewhat shattered. He quickly went up to support his retreat. Aha! Tian Xiaoyan's face was a bit pale at this moment. Big brother. Xiao Yan. Are you alright? What happened? All three of them showed worried expressions, but just then, grabbing corpse flew out from the sky, looking at Tian Xiaoyan mockingly. So the weakness of this form of yours is fear of sound waves. It's truly disappointing, but thankfully, I finally got the item back. Grabbing corpse first mocked Tian Xiaoyan, then had the grabbing corpse return to his body. Then he reattached the unique lucky magic pendant to his chest. In an instant, the feeling of returning power filled grabbing corpse's entire body. Grabbing corpse's eyes turned yellow, and yellow magic energy erupted around his body. In an instant, the sky and the entire city underwent a massive change, with countless lightning bolts and suction attacks assaulting the city. I will turn this city into a ghost town. Grabbing corpse stood high in the sky, holding out the Akamita spellbook, and shouted loudly. This is bad. I have no way to deal with this. Facing grabbing corpse, who was like a humanoid beast, Ben Tennyson said with a bitter face. If this continues, the entire city will be destroyed by him. Tien Mark gritted his teeth, somewhat unwilling. It's all my fault. If I had cooperated well with you and Big Brother before. Instead of charging in blindly. I'm the truly arrogant one. Gwen Tennyson reflected on her actions at this moment, saying with some regret. Xiao Wen, Tien Mark and Ben Tennyson both showed surprised looks. However, at this moment, Tian Xiaoyan slowly sat up, the crystal cracks on his body slowly healing. He said teasingly, Xiao Wen. It makes me feel at ease that you can understand your mistakes. Big brother. Gwen Tennyson looked at Tian Xiaoyan, who was beaming with a confident smile, somewhat confused. Leave the rest to me. Little Ban. Throw me next to that bony head. Tian Xiaoyan stood up, patted her head, and turned to say. Are you serious, big brother? Ben Tennyson looked at grabbing corpse, who was somewhat unapproachable, and said to Tian Xiaoyan in surprise. Hurry, if I'm not mistaken. It should work, Tian Xiaoyan urged Ben Tennyson. Ben Tennyson gritted his teeth and decided to take a gamble. 4 arms grabbed Tian Xiaoyan's waist. Here you go. Ben Tennyson threw him forcefully towards grabbing corpse. Tian Xiaoyan gritted his teeth, feeling the wind pressure from the impact. Finally, his arm transformed into a sharp part, poised to ambush grabbing corpse. Grabbing corpse's eyes widened instantly. At the moment Tian Xiaoyan attacked, it made him fly into the air. With a casual energy blast, it hit his stomach, and Ben Tennyson and the others below showed worried expressions. Although Tian Xiaoyan was hit. But he sneered because when he floated into the air just now, he had already seen the content of the spell in the spellbook. Is that all you've got, magic boy? Grabbing corpse said mockingly to Tian Xiaoyan. However, Tian Xiaoyan's actions at this moment were somewhat strange. He first rotated the icon on his chest in the air. Then he slapped it down, turning into little odd soldier, then slapped it again, changing back to human form and using sky energy. He landed steadily on the ground. Standing up, he looked at grabbing corpse with a sneer. If you're planning to go crazy now, I don't mind directly taking your life. Grabbing corpse condensed powerful magic energy in his hand. He aimed it at Tian Xiaoyan and said mockingly. Oh, really? Then how about this? Tian Xiaoyan sneered, drawing several talismans in the air with his finger, and they all appeared. This is. Grabbing corpse looked at the talismans Tian Xiaoyan drew in surprise. Tian Xiaoyan's eyes flashed red. His body floated, and the sky energy in his hand erupted with a powerful stance. He chanted a powerful magic spell. Aiming at Grabbing Corpse, he directly fired it out. Ah! Grabbing Corpse wanted to dodge in fear, but he was hit on the head by a stone from behind, temporarily stopping his steps. Grabbing Corpse turned his head and saw Gwen Tennyson standing in place, looking at him with a sneer. Don't forget, Lucky Girl is also one of your enemies. However, it was this difference of a few minutes that allowed the energy in Tian Xiaoyan's hand to directly hit Grabbing Corpse. No. The magic power in Grabbing Corpse's body, for some reason, directly flowed out of his body and then flew into the Akamita spellbook. How did you learn the reversal spell? Grabbing Corpse asked Tian Xiaoyan in surprise as his power was being absorbed. Simple. When I was knocked away by you, I saw the spell sequence written on the previous page of the spellbook. Although I didn't know which one was the language for the reversal spell, I used the clever little odd soldier. In a short time, I analyzed the useful spells among them. And how to control it next is also a simple matter, isn't it? Tian Xiaoyan perfectly answered Grabbing Corpse's question. No. Grabbing Corpse screamed unwillingly. All his magic energy returned to the magic spellbook. He himself fainted and fell to the ground. Tian Xiaoyan slowly descended to the ground, destroying all the magic pendant stones on his chest except for the lucky magic pendant. I'll keep this for now. The museum hardly uses it anyway. Tian Xiaoyan looked at the Akamita spellbook, whistled, and then picked it up with a grin. They once again resolved the crisis. This was great. Grabbing Corpse, upon waking, was arrested by the police. Unable to use his magic for a period of time, he should have a very interesting time. Big brother, should I give this back to you? Gwen Tennyson, while in the old RV, took out the lucky magic pendant that Tian Xiaoyan had given her again and handed it to Tian Xiaoyan. Why? Tian Xiaoyan said, holding the lucky magic pendant, puzzled. This incident also made me realize that being noticed isn't necessarily a good thing. I might not be ready to be a hero yet. So I probably don't need this for now, Gwen Tennyson explained with a smile, stroking her head. That's great, you accurately understand yourself, Ben Tennyson said excitedly, knowing that Gwen Tennyson would no longer steal his thunder. Alright. Then I'll keep it for now. When you need it at some point, I'll give it back to you. Tian Xiaoyan felt Gwen Tennyson's determination and didn't say much more. He placed the lucky magic pendant in the top cabinet using sky energy. So now, as heroes, can I ask you two for a favor? Gwen Tennyson said with a relaxed smile at this moment. Ben Tennyson and Tian Xiaoyan looked at her, somewhat confused. Can you say that I'm awesome? Gwen Tennyson said sincerely, with earnest eyes. Tian Xiaoyan raised an eyebrow, clearly knowing what his little sister was up to. That's okay. Xiao Wen. You're really awesome, Ben Tennyson, without any guard, satisfied Gwen Tennyson's request. Gwen Tennyson showed a cunning smile on her face, but when she looked at Tian Xiaoyan not saying that, she put on an innocent look again. That's enough. Tian Xiaoyan stood with his hands on his hips, looking at her sternly. Oh, alright. Gwen Tennyson also knew her plan had been seen through, saying somewhat helplessly. What's wrong? Ben Tennyson looked at the two of them in confusion, and then something that made him cringe happened. Xiao Wen. You're really awesome. Xiao Wen. You're really awesome. Gwen Tennyson took out a tape recorder. She pressed the button inside to play what Ben Tennyson had just said. Hey. You tricked me. Ben Tennyson finally realized he had been played, pointing at Gwen Tennyson. You're just dumb. Dummy. Big brother is smarter than you, Gwen Tennyson grinned, looking at Ben Tennyson. Then Ben Tennyson, unconvinced, started chasing her. Wanting to snatch the tape recorder. On the other side, Tian Xiaoyan just looked at the contents of the spellbook, ignoring them. Inside a crumbling building, 5 or 6 civilians were trapped. Ben Tennyson and Tian Xiaoyan immediately stepped forward. Little Ban. I'll control the building's collapse time. You go in and rescue the others, Tian Xiaoyan said, rotating his watch and transforming into swampfire. He threw out several plant seeds. They transformed into countless vines on the ground, wrapping around the building. His own arms also transformed into intertwining vines. Relax, Ben bro. Fast Flash Star can solve everything, Ben Tennyson said with a smile, rotating his watch, selecting a character, and then slamming it down. After a flash of green light, the Tian Shaoyan beside him looked at him helplessly. How many times have I told you? Pressing down hard will trigger a random selection, Tian Shaoyan said, looking at Ben10, who had transformed into 4 arms, and shaking his head helplessly. Oh, my bad. But it doesn't matter. Hang in there, Ben bro. Ben10 awkwardly scratched his head, looking at his massive body. He randomly jumped into the building, navigating through twists and turns until he heard cries for help. Bang! Ben10 punched through the door. He saw the ceiling about to fall, threatening to crush a mother and child. He rushed over, propped it up, and then tossed it aside. Are you two all right? Ben10 asked, looking down. The mother and child, seeing Ben10's strange appearance, nodded vigorously. Then, Ben10 jumped outside, bringing them out. After much effort, he had rescued almost everyone. But just as he was about to leave, he heard a voice. Hey, Mr. Four Arms. Could you please take me out? My back hurts a bit. Ben10 turned his head and saw a man in a white lab coat with green goggles around his neck and a yellow shirt underneath. He was sitting on the ground, smiling at Ben10. Oh, no problem. Ben10 didn't think much of it, turning to carry him on his back. Hey, you guys are really punctual, just as I expected. Xiao Yan might not be able to hold on much longer outside, so hurry down now. The man said mysteriously from Ben10's back. How did you? Ben10 looked at him in surprise. How did he know Tian Xiaoyan's name? And why did it feel like their presence here was exactly as the man had predicted? Little Ban. Hurry down, I can't hold on much longer, Tian Xiaoyan's anxious voice came from outside. Boom. The building was teetering, as if it would collapse at any second. Seeing this, Ben10 no longer hesitated, charging directly outside and leaping down from a great height. At the same time, the vines set up by Tian Xiaoyan, who had transformed into swampfire, finally lost their effectiveness. Then, as Tian Xiaoyan's hands returned to their normal state, the building completely collapsed. Phew, it's finally over. Who are you carrying? Tian Xiaoyan also reverted from his transformation and came to Ben10, who was still in his four-arm state. He looked up and saw a man in a lab coat like attire slumped on his back. Ah, Ben bro. He said he seems to know you, so I brought him over. Ben10, still confused, explained what he knew, then lifted the man off his back. Know me. What are you? Wait a minute. Tian Xiaoyan was puzzled, but when he saw the man's full appearance, his familiar attire, and his slightly teasing expression, he was instantly stunned. Hi, Xiao Yan, long time no see. Although for you, this is our first time. But I still have to say, the man stood up, stretched his limbs, and said with a grin. You. Go back first. Tian Xiaoyan was about to blurt out the 4 words that came to his mind, but Tian Mark and the others had already driven the old RV over. Tian Xiaoyan quickly said, trying to avoid suspicion. Inside the old RV, the man looked around and said with a laugh, haha. I haven't seen this car in many years. It's still as classic as ever, it makes me so happy. Tian Xiaoyan stood beside him, looking at him helplessly. On the other side, Ben10 and the other 2, sitting in the front, looked at the slightly eccentric man with confusion. Hey, not to be rude. It's just that this guy seems a little strange, Gwen Tennyson whispered to the 2. He told me he seems to be Ben Bro's friend because he knows Ben Bro's name. Ben10's eyes darted around as he recounted everything he had just learned. So, Xiao Yan. You also look unsurprised, as if you know something. Tian Mark also noticed Tian Xiaoyan's calm expression. What are you doing here? Who are you? Tian Xiaoyan subconsciously blurted out the question. Who am I? Xiao Yan. That's not a funny joke. You know who I am, don't you? The man seemed to have heard a huge joke when he heard this, laughing as he looked at Tian Xiaoyan. Why would I? Wait. Could it be? Tian Xiaoyan was about to retort, but he found the man's expression to be ambiguous, as if it held a deeper meaning. No need to think anymore. I know a lot of things, but what you need to know now is that I am just your friend, always, the man said with a raised eyebrow. Listening to the other party's tone, Tian Xiaoyan understood that he knew about him being a transmigrator. Then, he relaxed his guard, spread his hands, and said, so. What major event has brought the famous time traveler, Dr. Mao Dun, to this timeline? Hearing this title, Dr. Mao Dun smiled. That's right, this guy is Dr. Mao Dun, the time traveler who exists outside of time in the Ben 10 universe. He often helps Ben Tennyson and his friends overcome difficulties, and his current appearance is from Ultimate Alien. However, he always provides help as an observer. Haha, your current state really brings back memories. I almost got pulled back into past memories by you. Dr. Mao Dun smiled, looking at Tian Xiaoyan's relaxed posture. Are my future self and you very close? Tian Xiaoyan looked at Dr. Mao Dun in surprise. To be honest, he didn't have much affection for Dr. Mao Dun. Because every time this guy appeared, it meant a major event was about to happen. Now, you should tell your family, because for this event, I need their help, and I need yours even more. Dr. Mao Dun didn't answer Tian Xiaoyan's question and turned to look at Tian Mark and the others. Your way of speaking is really uncomfortable. Tian Xiaoyan's veins popped out on his face, listening to the half-finished sentence, but he reluctantly walked over and explained to the three confused people. After hearing the entire introduction, all three showed shocked expressions. Future person. Ben bro, are you serious? Gwen Tennyson said in disbelief. Cool. What about my future? Did I become a world-renowned hero? Ben Tennyson, on the other hand, excitedly asked Dr. Mao Dun. Haha. Little Ban, regarding that question, why not leave him a little mystery? Dr. Mao Dun said with a smile. Alright then. Ben Tennyson, seeing Dr. Mao Dun's tight-lipped demeanor, could only awkwardly walk away, then began to fantasize about his future self. You and your future self are still a bit different, but you're already in a solid state, Dr. Mao Dun said, shrugging with his eyes closed. Xiao Yan. Is he really your friend? Tian Mark still looked at Dr. Mao Dun with a wary gaze. Yes. The future is always unpredictable, isn't it? Don't worry. Grandpa, he's on our side, Tian Xiaoyan explained awkwardly. Alright then. What should I call you, sir? What do you want us to help you with? Tian Mark, hearing Tian Xiaoyan's explanation, also lowered his guard. He asked Dr. Mao Dun, who, seeing the greatest plumbers in the universe before him, didn't delay and said, my name is Dr. Mao Dun. But Mr. Mark, let's just call each other, sir. Otherwise, it feels a bit strange. As for my purpose, it's also for this guy. Dr. Mao Dun took out a pocket watch from his pregnant, opened it, and a blue holographic projection appeared inside. However, the image revealed shocked Tian Xiaoyan. Vilgax. The figure on the screen wore purple mechanical clothing. And had a somewhat sinister face. All of it showed that he had great ambition. This person was Vilgax, one of the villains who appeared in Ultimate Alien and Omniverse. Like Dr. Mao Dun, he also possessed the ability to travel through time. His true form was a Chronosapian clone who once attempted to seize Ben Tennyson's body and the Omnitrix, but failed. Who's this weird-looking guy? Ben Tennyson looked at Vilgax's face and felt an inexplicable sense of aversion. His name is Vilgax. He's a villain with time-traveling abilities. In the process of pursuing him, I found out about his plot to control this timeline. Dr. Mao Dun revealed everything he knew. Wait, how does Vilgax plan to control this timeline? Tian Xiaoyan was a bit confused. While Vilgax's abilities were decent compared to other villains, attempting to control this timeline seemed a bit unrealistic, didn't it? Exactly, Vilgax's inherent abilities aren't enough to control this timeline. But he got this. Dr. Mao Dun nodded, and then a new projection appeared, showing a red egg. What is this? Tian Xiaoyan exclaimed in surprise, seeing another familiar object. This is the time egg. Inside it exists the time beast, a species in the universe that can alter time. Vilgax once planned to absorb its energy to reshape this timeline. But I, Dr. Mao Dun, stopped him directly when he was about to do it. But unfortunately, the time egg fell into the time stream during the fight. According to my investigation, it eventually ended up in this timeline, and it seems to have been displayed as an exhibit somewhere in this city, Dr. Mao Dun said seriously. Whether Vilgax gets the time egg, or if this egg hatches due to someone's actions and a time beast appears, it will create a cosmic crisis. We must stop this from happening before it occurs. Dr. Mao Dun explained the entire cause and effect, and also expressed his own thoughts. Oh, I heard it, but I don't quite understand. But as long as we stop this guy in the purple mechanical suit, right? Ben Tennyson, after hearing the whole story, was full of questions but still said confidently. Excellent, that's exactly it. Little Ben, Dr. Maudun snapped his fingers and said with a smile. Then do you know which exhibition hall that egg is currently in, Dr. Gwen Tennyson also raised her hand to ask. At the Vienna Museum, not far from here. It was found by an unknown farmer. This egg will be exhibited at 12 p.m. We have 5 hours left. Dr. Maudun changed the projection to the destination. Wait, I have a question. Tian Xiaoyan suddenly raised his hand and asked. What is it, Xiao Yan? If you're asking about the future, I can give you some information after we finish this. Dr. Maudun turned his head and said. You wouldn't have come to this timeline to ask for our help because you couldn't find anyone else, would you? Tian Xiaoyan finally remembered, wasn't Dr. Maudun's network very extensive? Why would he specifically come to them? Future Ben Bro. Or future Ben Tennyson, maybe even his future self could help. It was too strange that Dr. Maudun didn't have anyone with him. Ah, how could that be? You're still so neurotic. Hee hee. Dr. Maudun seemed to have been hit on a nerve, turning his head and laughing. He's still as sharp as ever, no matter the timeline. Alright, Xiao Yan. The most important thing now is to save our timeline. We can ask about what this gentleman said later. Tian Mark exercised his authority and said to Tian Xiaoyan. Alright then, Tian Xiaoyan sat in his chair and said nothing more. Tian Mark then started the old RV and began to accelerate forward. Wow! Outside the Vienna Museum in this city, a crowd of people were applauding and cheering as museum staff carried out an exhibit enclosed in a glass case. Thank you for waiting. Next, I'm going to present to everyone a miraculous egg found on Mr. Yang's farm. Its surface shines as if it possesses profound magic. I declare it will be the museum's best commemorative collection. The host loudly announced, pulling off the red cloth covering the glass case. Crack. However, the time egg, as it was revealed to the crowd, had a tiny crack on its surface. Of course, they didn't notice it. Bang! Just then, a powerful purple beam directly struck the museum's signboard, raising clouds of dust. Ah! The surrounding crowd screamed frantically, as if encountering a natural disaster. My apologies. This egg was accidentally dropped by me, and I'm taking it back now, if that's alright. Vilgax slowly descended from a tall building using a purple energy platform, saying with a smile. No. No, it belongs to the museum. The host, though somewhat afraid of Vilgax's demeanor, still stubbornly clutched the glass case. How unfortunate. Vilgax rolled his eyes in annoyance, then purple energy gathered in his hand, and instantly countless purple vortices appeared in the air. One by one, ninja soldiers in purple mechanical suits appeared. Surround this place for me, Vilgax commanded with a wave of his hand. Countless purple ninja soldiers began to capture the remaining crowd, and one of the soldiers even jumped onto the high platform. He kicked down the host who was tightly protecting the glass case. Excellent. Bring it to me, Vilgax excitedly ordered the ninja soldier. Just as the ninja soldier was about to grab the time egg. Bang! A powerful flame shot directly blasted him away. Vilgax turned his head and saw Tian Xiaoyan, transformed into Flame Man, standing in a firing stance. The show's over, Vilgax, Tian Xiaoyan said, looking up at Vilgax. That tone. You are, Vilgax, due to the symbol on Tian Xiaoyan's chest, couldn't tell if he was Ben Tennyson or Tian Xiaoyan. Just then, the old RV, driven by Tian Mark, arrived in time, and Dr. Maudun also stepped out. Vilgax. You won't succeed this time, Dr. Maudun shouted at Vilgax. You stinking Maudun. You really followed me, you're such a leech, Vilgax shouted at Dr. Maudun. Immediately, he also saw Ben Tennyson and the others getting out of the car, and instantly realized that this flame man was Tian Xiaoyan in disguise. Haha. What if you brought him back? He's too young now, he's no match for me at all, Vilgax said mockingly to Dr. Maudun. Oh, really? Then why are your legs trembling? Dr. Maudun raised an eyebrow and smirked. Ah. Vilgax looked down and saw his legs unconsciously trembling. He quickly grabbed them. Ah. Am I really that scary in the future? Tian Xiaoyan was also greatly surprised by Vilgax's reaction. Dr. Maodun indicated that his future was quite promising. If you keep talking like that, do you believe I'll hit you? Tian Xiaoyan said, his face full of black lines, looking at Dr. Maodun. This way of spoiling without spoiling makes people very uncomfortable, doesn't it? Stinking Maodun. Attack. Vilgax noticed his lapse and cursed angrily. He commanded his soldiers to attack Tian Xiaoyan and the others. Facing this situation, 4 arms is the first choice, Ben10 said with a smile, looking at the surging crowd, then rotated his watch and slammed it down hard. After a flash of green light, Diamond Head, with his green crystals, appeared. Actually, you don't have to press so hard. That will trigger the Omnitrix's re-randomization function, Dr. Maodun said, standing beside him. It doesn't matter. Ben10 awkwardly scratched his head, hearing the familiar words, then charged towards the ninja soldiers. Bang! He leapt into the air first and shot a volley of crystal bullets at the ninja soldiers, directly knocking down a group. Oh yeah. Who's the best? I'm the best. Ben10 shouted boastfully. However, a group of ninja minions coming at him made him grimace. This is too much, isn't it? Ben10 gritted his teeth, his arm transforming into a sharp blade. He swung it forward. Ha! Tian Mark watched with a keen reaction, dodging a ninja minion's slash. He kicked him away. Xiao Wen. Why are you wearing that again? Tian Mark was about to look for Gwen Tennyson when he found her dressed in her hero suit again. It's an emergency. So I had to bring it out again. Please call me lucky girl now, Grandpa, Gwen Tennyson said with a smile. Even before the battle, Tian Xiaoyan had given the lucky charm from the cabinet to Gwen Tennyson. Bang! A ninja minion was just about to ambush Gwen Tennyson when a steel pipe suddenly flew from the sky and directly hit his head, leaving him motionless on the ground. I knew you'd listen to me. Gwen Tennyson turned to look at the ninja minion who wanted to ambush her, then looked at the glowing charm stone on her chest and said with a smile. Bang! 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 On Tian Xiaoyan's side, he flew into the air, condensing flames in his hands and continuously throwing them at Vilgax. Ha! Purple blades appeared on Vilgax's arms, directly cutting down all the flames. Then he jumped into the air and grabbed Tian Xiaoyan. You are not in your peak state now, nor are you your future self. This timeline belongs to me, you can't stop it. Tian Xiaoyan, Vilgax shouted arrogantly. Upon hearing this, Tian Xiaoyan rotated his watch, transforming into Shenli Tyrannosaurus and punching Vilgax into the ground. Vilgax struggled to open his eyes on the ground. He then saw Tian Xiaoyan's massive fist. Bang! Vilgax struggled to his feet and shot out a purple beam of light. Tian Xiaoyan landed on the ground and, seeing this, rotated his watch to become NRG. He blocked the beam. Then he transformed into Fast Flash Star and rapidly charged into Vilgax's body. Then, at the moment Vilgax painfully closed his eyes, he whipped him upward with his tail. He then transformed into 4 arms again. Tian Xiaoyan chanted a magic spell, and red magical light clusters appeared in all 4 of his hands. Tian Xiaoyan jumped into the air, punching Vilgax higher and higher with the magic's enhancement, punch after punch. Then he embraced him, making him unable to move, and looked at Vilgax. That's not necessarily true. I never understand a losing battle, Tian Xiaoyan said teasingly to Vilgax, then rotated his watch, and after a red flash, transformed into Ice Ghost. His body directly became ethereal, allowing Vilgax to pass through him. Then, the moment he landed, he exhaled cold air, freezing half of his body. Then, using red sky energy, he created binding ropes to tie up Vilgax. Vilgax struggled desperately, and Tian Xiaoyan coldly said, wasting your strength is useless. These are ropes I created using the binding spell from the tome. You, who just exhausted yourself with me, cannot break free. Well done. Xiao Yan. Alright, Vilgax, you're on your own now. Just surrender obediently. Dr. Maodun also dealt with a minion, taking an energy blade from his hand and pointing it at Vilgax's neck. At this moment, Vilgax was somewhat frantic. Why can't I ever win against you? You truly are my nemesis, Tian Xiaoyan. Tian Xiaoyan heard this and looked exasperated. That's because your attack pattern is too simple. Like little bands, mixing personal emotions will only make your attacks more predictable. They're even a bit shoddy. Vilgax, upon hearing these words, didn't get angry. Instead, he lowered his head and chuckled coldly. That's right, you once told me that too. If I can't rule this timeline, then let this timeline be destroyed, Vilgax said loudly, and then, using his abilities, he controlled a nearby minion. He pulled out an energy blade and attacked the time egg. Not good. Little Ban. Quickly stop him, Tian Xiaoyan, unable to break free due to controlling Vilgax, quickly said to Ben10, who had just dealt with a group of miscellaneous soldiers. Take this. Ben10 quickly ran forward and shot crystal bullets. Just as they were about to hit the minion, the attack landed, but the minion's blade still accurately pierced the time egg. Crack. The previous crack on the surface of the egg split open directly, and finally, under everyone's gaze, it burst open with a pop. Roar. The juvenile time beast rapidly grew into a giant creature with ram horns. It roared and charged past Ben10. Ben10 instinctively reacted, knowing he couldn't let it touch him. He immediately created a crystal cliff. He himself was underneath. Bang! The moment the crystal was touched by the time beast, it instantly turned into black powder. The time beast bypassed Ben10 and ran into the distance. Wow! This guy is super strong, Ben10 exclaimed, looking in the direction of the time beast. Tian Xiaoyan cursed under his breath, looking at the time beast running into the distance, then glared at Vilgax. Heh. Vilgax just looked at his expression, enjoying it as he laughed. Dr. Maodun at this moment stopped Tian Xiaoyan, who was about to get angry. The main thing now is to solve the time beast problem. Xiao Yan, calm down, Dr. Maodun said with a serious expression. All right. What do you suggest, Doctor? Tian Xiaoyan also calmed down and asked Dr. Maodun. I suggest using the reverse curse. Combined with fast flash star's speed, it should work, Dr. Maodun directly stated the plan he had in mind. It's worth a try, Tian Xiaoyan thought for a moment and was about to execute it when Vilgax suddenly shouted loudly, interrupting them. Do you think these are the only disasters? How naive. Vilgax's eyes flashed with purple light, and in an instant, two massive purple temporal vortices appeared in the sky. Immediately after, two huge dark figures slowly emerged from the vortices. Tian Xiaoyan's eyes widened as he looked at the enormous creatures in front of him. Roar. Two massive voices roared loudly. You lunatic. You actually brought the evil giants over. Tian Xiaoyan grabbed Vilgax's collar and shouted. That's right, these two gigantic purple giants with slightly pale skin, resembling Ultraman. They were the evil giants. Most of the evil giants were originally trapped in the null void. It seems Vilgax put in a lot of effort to cause trouble. Ha 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 ha. On one side are the evil giants, and on the other is the time beast. How will you choose, Tian Xiaoyan, the savior of the universe? Vilgax laughed wildly. I'm going to. Tian Xiaoyan, hearing this, was so angry he was fuming and wanted to punch Vilgax, but suddenly a scream came from afar. It seemed the time beast was causing trouble. Doctor, do you have anything like a temporal crystal shield? Tian Xiaoyan noticed the seriousness of the situation and turned to Dr. Maodun. Dr. Maodun didn't hesitate. He pulled out a blue crystal from his embrace and threw it to Tian Xiaoyan. In an instant, the crystal transformed into a blue energy that infused into his body. I'm sorry, but I'll leave the evil giants for you and Little Ban to deal with. I have to go deal with that crazy sheep. Tian Xiaoyan rotated his watch and transformed into Fast Flash Star. Dr. Maodun smiled and nodded. Don't worry, leave it to me. Tian Xiaoyan put on his X mask and activated the rollers on his feet, chasing after the time beast with all his might. Dr. Maodun had just turned his head when he realized Vilgax had already escaped. Always picking your moments, aren't you? You really never learn, Dr. Maodun said, shaking his head as he looked in the direction Vilgax had disappeared. Little Ban, come here, Dr. Maodun called out to Ben10, who was staring blankly nearby. Doctor. What do we do now? Where did my brother go? Ben10 asked Dr. Maodun anxiously. Gwen Tennyson and Tien Mark and the others also rushed over. Bang! The two evil giants were still wreaking havoc on the city. Watching the buildings gradually being destroyed. Gwen Tennyson also excitedly said, if this continues, the entire city will be destroyed by these two big guys. Dr. Maodun heard her words and calmly comforted them. Don't worry. The appearance of the evil giants at this time is just a temporal rift caused by Vilgax. As long as Xiao Yan solves the time beast problem, they will also disappear. But for now, the most important thing is to hold them off. Wait for Xiao Yan. Then how do we stop them? Ben10 said anxiously. Dr. Mao Dun, unhurriedly, took out a disc and came to Ben10's side. Little Ban. Haven't you always wanted to help Xiao Yan? Now there's an opportunity, do you want to seize it? Dr. Mao Dun's words made Ben10 a bit confused. But he still nodded affirmatively. Dr. Mao Dun smiled slightly. No matter which timeline, these brothers always made him happy. He then aimed the disc at Ben10's Omnitrix. At this moment, the Omnitrix flashed with dazzling yellow light, and after scanning the disc, a figure automatically appeared. Hey, who's this guy? Ben10 asked, looking at the unfamiliar figure on his chest. He's Super Giant, an alien hero who can temporarily hold off the evil giants. Consider this a trial run for you. Dr. Mao Dun said with a smile, then slapped the Omnitrix. Then a dazzling green light slowly shone from the Omnitrix, and Ben10's figure also became gigantic. As the green light flashed, a giant with white skin, pink base, and red limbs and a green eye on top of his head appeared. Wow! He's really a giant, and super giant too. Ben10 exclaimed, looking at the wide view below. Roar! The two evil giants, who were destroying the city, discovered Ben10 and instinctively ran to attack him. Ha! Ben10 saw one of the evil giants charging, crouched slightly, and then, seizing the moment it attacked with its arm, grabbed its arm and performed an over-the-shoulder throw. He threw it into a nearby small mountain. The other evil giant directly delivered a roaring whip kick towards Ben10. Ben10's pupils flickered, and at the moment of the attack, he grabbed the evil giant's leg. The evil giant looked on in disbelief. Ha ha. My training wasn't for nothing, it's party time. Ben10 thought back to Kevin's incident, after which he had asked Tian Xiaoyan to intensify his training. Under Tian Xiaoyan's devilish training, Ben10's reaction speed and strength had greatly improved. Bang! 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 Ben10 directly grabbed the evil giant's leg and performed a Hulk-like series of powerful slams. Oh yeah! Ben10 said with a smile, looking at the somewhat scarred evil giant, but then turned around and found the evil giant he had thrown earlier slowly walking back, roaring. And he also noticed that the evil giant in front of him was recovering from damage a bit too quickly. Oh yeah. Hope my brother hurries up. Ben10 said with a somewhat bitter expression. On the other side, the time beast was continuously corroding the surrounding buildings with its temporal power as it ran. Tian Xiaoyan was constantly chasing it from below. Finally, he condensed sky energy at his feet, leapt up, and directly kicked the time beast. Roar! The time beast fell to the ground, then stood up and roared at Tian Xiaoyan. Let's play. Crazy sheep. Tian Xiaoyan chanted a spell, and the sky energy in his hand released electric light. Roar! The two evil giants suddenly cooperated, tightly embracing Ben10. Oh, annoying. Why is this plot happening again? Ben10 remembered the grabbing corpse incident and grumbled. Ah! Ben10 roared, trying to break free from them, but it was useless. The evil giant's strength and the beast man puppets had a heaven and earth difference, let alone two of them. Little Ban, Tian Mark said worriedly. Brother, is he really okay? Aren't you going to help him? Gwen Tennyson also looked nervously at the calm and composed Dr. Mao Dun and said loudly. Do you know Tian Xiaoyan's greatest strength? Dr. Mao Dun asked a question that seemed unrelated. Quote. Gwen Tennyson looked at him in confusion. That is, he never fails. Dr. Mao Dun's confident smile radiated anticipation, and just then, a dazzling green light rose from behind him. Look. Perfect timing, Dr. Mao Dun said, turning his head. Gwen Tennyson looked up and saw Tian Xiaoyan activating the rollers on his feet, holding a red time egg in his hand. Ah. Huh. Ben10 was still struggling with the evil giants above, but suddenly noticed they disappeared like smoke. Solved. Ben10 looked down at the crowd below. Perfectly completed, Tian Xiaoyan, unable to make a thumbs up due to having 3 fingers, raised his fist and said. They had once again saved this timeline and universe. A little later, Tian Xiaoyan handed the time egg to Dr. Mao Dun, who took out a box and placed it inside. I'm very grateful. Xiao Yan. You always manage to complete everything beyond my expectations. Perhaps someone like you truly can save the world in the future, Dr. Mao Dun said with a smile, looking at Tian Xiaoyan. Tian Xiaoyan frowned, then sighed, forget it. I have to get used to this tone. Otherwise, losing control would be too undignified. Dr. Mao Dun chuckled upon hearing this. I understand, if I say any more nonsense, you might actually punch me. But to show my gratitude, I'm giving you this. Dr. Mao Dun took out a red crystal from his embrace. Wow, this is. Tian Xiaoyan said in surprise, looking at the familiar shape. A crystal that can complete the evolution of your Ultimatrix. In the future, you once gave me one. Now I'm returning it to you as a thank you gift, Dr. Mao Dun said with a grin. Thank you. Wait, how do you mean? This is still my stuff. Tian Xiaoyan was about to thank him but then realized something was off. Good heavens, you're giving me my own stuff, you're too good at this game. He then thought about Ben Tennyson's transformation into Super Giant. What was that about? Dr. Mao Dun patiently explained that it was just a temporary trial card. It would be gone after today. Tian Xiaoyan nodded, understanding. But then Tian Xiaoyan noticed that the three people waiting behind, Ben Tennyson, suddenly showed signs of fatigue. He asked Dr. Mao Dun in confusion what was going on. Dr. Mao Dun explained that it was a small trick he used for the stability of the timeline. They would forget today's events. Like a dream. Tian Xiaoyan nodded, then asked if he would be the same. Dr. Mao Dun chuckled at this point, shaking his head, no. You and I are both special beings in time. We will not forget. I have such an awesome identity. Tian Xiaoyan looked at Dr. Mao Dun in surprise, intending to ask more questions. Dr. Mao Dun stopped him. Xiao Yan. If you say any more, it'll be a spoiler, Dr. Mao Dun said, wagging his finger. Seeing this, Tian Xiaoyan could only give up helplessly. Alright, I should go. I need to cherish every minute of time. Oh, that's right, Dr. Mao Dun, holding the box, opened a temporal vortex and was about to step in when he suddenly remembered something and turned to Tian Xiaoyan. He then said, Xiao Yan. You must abide by every choice in your heart. Your decisions concern the fate of all universes and all timelines. Hearing this, Tian Xiaoyan was silent for a moment. Then he looked up and smiled calmly. My motto, I can't possibly lose, don't you know that yet? Dr. Mao Dun, feeling Tian Xiaoyan's strong confidence, also smiled. You're right. Goodbye, friend. Leaving these words, Dr. Mao Dun completely stepped into the temporal vortex and disappeared before him. Goodbye, friend, Tian Xiaoyan said with a smile, hands in his pockets. Then he looked at the red crystal in his hand. It seems today wasn't without gains. Let's go, time to go back to sleep. Tian Xiaoyan hummed a little tune and skipped over to Tian Mark and the others. The temporal defense war ended. Inside the old RV, Tian Xiaoyan and the others were discussing the upgrade and eternal warrior they had dealt with last week. Do you remember how I froze that upgrade uncle into a block of ice? It was truly amazing. Ben Tennyson excitedly said to the two people in front of him. Yeah. If you hadn't been busy fighting that upgrade uncle, and luckily Big Brother had helped us freeze the power core in time. Otherwise, we might have been blown sky high. Gwen Tennyson teased him again at this moment. I wanted to help too, but my watch ran out of power, Ben Tennyson said, scratching his head with an awkward smile. Alright, little Ban. You also performed very well when dealing with the Eternal Warrior, Tian Xiaoyan said, lying next to him and smiling. Hee hee, Ben Tennyson chuckled, scratching his head. But we've had such strange weeks. Mad scientists, water monsters, zombie elders, and other kinds of weirdos. Gwen Tennyson said, taking out a notebook and commenting. It clearly documented the occurrences of various events, as Tian Xiaoyan had requested, wanting to record every moment, but he always entrusted Gwen Tennyson with it due to time constraints. Gwen Tennyson also casually agreed, feeling the job was nothing. Upon hearing this, Ben Tennyson took the notebook and said with a smile, wow. This has all my heroic deeds written down. My goal in the future is to head to the universe and fight aliens, haha. Ben Tennyson said with a flamboyant pose and a laugh. Don't be silly, blockhead, Gwen Tennyson said, though a smile unconsciously curled at the corner of her lips. Kids. Tian Xiaoyan shook his head helplessly, looking at the two of them. Although many things have happened, overall, this summer vacation has been pretty good. They are also very happy, aliens. Tian Mark looked at the joyful appearance of the three people behind him and smiled contentedly. However, upon hearing the words, aliens, a green, tentacled monster unconsciously appeared in Tian Mark's mind, and he constantly felt a sense of unease these past few days. At the same time, in the space battleship, Vilgax was growing impatient due to his prolonged inability to obtain the Omnitrix. Moreover, his body had recovered and was even enhanced. Bang! Angrily, he punched and exploded a reporting robot monster, saying furiously, enough. I no longer trust those so-called guys. I will personally go to Earth to retrieve the Omnitrix. On a grassland, countless herds of cattle felt the immense pressure from above and looked up to see a giant battleship floating in the sky. Boom! Finally, a giant spherical hedgehog-like object rolled down from the grass and rushed directly towards the city. If I just do this, the Omnitrix user will definitely come, Vilgax said, sitting inside with glowing red eyes. He had understood Tian Xiaoyan and Ben10's methods and knew that they would not ignore people's pleas for help. Ah, what is that? Run! The crowds strolling in the city discovered the hedgehog-like sphere rushing from the grassland, destroying parts of the city as it went, and they screamed and ran away. On the other side, on a main road not far from the city, Tian Xiaoyan was bored when he heard screams from the distant city. Great, finally something to do. Ben10, feeling incredibly bored from not having dealt with any weirdos for so long, immediately became excited upon seeing the commotion in the distance. Wait, little Ban. Let's make a plan first. Something's not right, Tian Mark said, his inner dissatisfaction growing stronger as he looked at the commotion in the distance, and he quickly spoke to Ben10. But as soon as he turned his head, he saw Ben10 rotating his watch and transforming into Flame Man. Relax, Grandpa. I'm not afraid of any weirdo, I'm going first. Ben10 said, opening the car door with a smile. Boom. Flames erupted from his hands, and he flew high into the sky, heading straight for the city. Little Ban. Sigh, Xiao Yan, go after him. I have a bad feeling. We'll be there soon, Tian Mark sighed, watching Ben10 fly away, then turned to Tian Xiaoyan and said. Understood, Grandpa. Tian Xiaoyan nodded in agreement, then rotated his watch and transformed into Ice Ghost. After his body became ethereal, he spread his wings and flew into the sky. This time, it should be Vilgax's attack. This is a perfect opportunity to test my ultimate evolution hero, you stinky octopus. You better be able to take it, Tian Xiaoyan said with a wicked grin in the air. Bang! 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 Countless mechanical flying monsters were destroying the city's surroundings with beams of light in the sky. Just then, a fiery blast destroyed one of the mechanical monsters. Ha! Take this! Ben10 gathered countless flames in the air, like a torrential downpour, destroying one mechanical monster after another. He then used flames to create a buffer on the ground, and standing in the sea of fire, Ben10 confidently said, Hey, if you dare, come at me. The next second, countless mechanical monsters in the air stared at him. Hey, don't all come at once, it's annoying. Why do I feel like I'm walking into a trap? Ben10 grumbled. The next second, he gathered intense flames in his hands, destroying the surrounding mechanical swarm with an explosive force. Bang! But before he could relax, an energy chain was thrown directly at him and quickly captured him against a wall. Ah! What the hell? Ben10 struggled wildly against the wall, but it was useless. Bang! A giant brown hedgehog sphere quickly rushed towards them, expanding and revealing a cockpit. The hatch gradually opened. Following that, a tall figure, dark green in appearance, with green tentacles on his face, wearing a dark brown armor, with vein-like structures connecting the muscular parts in the armor's crevices, emerged. His face had structures like breathing tubes. His arms had 8 cylindrical structures. His crimson eyes all revealed his fierce aura. He slowly stood up from his throne and walked out, staring at Ben10. Ah! You really are creepy, Ben10 felt goosebumps all over his body the moment he was stared at. We finally meet. You troublesome, stupid earthling, Vilgax said slowly, staring at Ben10. Who are you? Ben10 struggled against the energy chain on his body and shouted loudly. I am Vilgax. I'm here for the Omnitrix and another weapon with the same function as the Omnitrix. Where is it? Tell me its location, and after I deal with you, I will go get it. Vilgax not only wanted the Omnitrix but also the Ultimatrix in Tian Xiaoyan's possession. Then you're not on the side of the good guys. As for the other watch, I advise you to give up on that idea. Ben10 understood the other party's intention and said disdainfully. In his eyes, this big octopus was just a big one, nothing more. Ah! Ben10 erupted with flames all over his body. Melting the metal parts of the energy chain, he then broke free. Jumping into the air, a fiery blast directly struck Vilgax, but to his surprise, the other party was unharmed. He even looked at Ben10 with a mocking gaze. Catching the stunned Ben10, he then unleashed immense strength from his arm and threw him away. Holy crap! Ben10 felt the impact force on his body and cursed. The next second, his body was like a meteor, constantly crashing into numerous buildings, eventually falling onto the rubble. Alright, I admit this guy is pretty tough. Ben10 emerged from the ruins, rubbing his head and saying. Vilgax also slowly walked over, taking a single jump that covered hundreds of meters to reach Ben10's side. So, how about this move? Ben10 looked at Vilgax slowly approaching him, and flames erupted from his hands, directly melting the asphalt pavement under Vilgax's feet. Bang! Although Vilgax ignored the high temperature brought by the flames, he was accidentally tripped by the melted ground. You annoying earthling! Vilgax's eyes flashed fiercely, and an aura belonging to a galactic overlord directly swept over Ben10. Ben10 immediately trembled a little. This guy, just as Vilgax was about to stand up and quickly attack Ben10, an ice ray directly hit his lower body. Vilgax turned his head and saw Tian Xiaoyan, transformed into Ice Ghost, grinning in the air. Hey, stinky octopus, long time no see. Vilgax heard this familiar and hateful nickname. He realized that Tian Xiaoyan was the annoying earthling who had spoken so arrogantly to him inside Luojiao last time. It's you. You still dare to appear before me. Vilgax stood up and said angrily to Tian Xiaoyan in the sky. There's a reason for this. And I'm not afraid of you anyway. If you want the Omnitrix in Little Ban's hand and the Ultimatrix in my hand, come and get them. Tian Xiaoyan said with a wicked smile. So, Big Brother's watch is called the Ultimatrix. I never heard him mention it, Ben10 said, scratching his fiery head with a hint of understanding. Ultimatrix. Another Omnitrix derivative developed by Azimuth. Then let me kill you. Vilgax's eyes flickered red, and he leapt up, punching towards Tian Xiaoyan. Bang! Tian Xiaoyan dodged in time, and Vilgax's fist hit the ground. Seeing this, Vilgax grabbed a huge rock from the road with one hand. He directly threw it at Tian Xiaoyan. Seeing this, Tian Xiaoyan pressed the Ultimatrix on his chest. He transformed into Shenli Tyrannosaurus. Ah! Tian Xiaoyan smashed the giant rock with one punch, landed on the ground, and looked at Vilgax, saying, let's have a wrestling match. Vilgax said nothing, just quickly rushed forward. Bang! The moment the two collided, a wave of energy emanated from the city center, covering the entire city. This guy is really tough, much stronger than anyone we've encountered before. I need to help Big Brother, Ben10 said, covering his face with his hand and sighing. But just as he was about to go, the Omnitrix did not cooperate and flashed red. Just then, Tian Mark also drove up. But when he saw Vilgax fighting Tian Xiaoyan, he widened his eyes in disbelief. No, it's impossible. Then, he saw Ben10, who had transformed back into his human form. He gritted his teeth and drove the car next to him. Little Ban. Get in the car quickly. Ben10 heard this and looked worriedly at Tian Xiaoyan's side. But what about Big Brother? Bang. As they spoke, Vilgax punched Tian Xiaoyan in the abdomen, making him stumble back a few steps. Seeing this, Tian Xiaoyan rotated his watch and transformed into Swampfire. He first threw out a few vine seeds. After entangling Vilgax, he gathered flames in his hand and attacked. Hurry! Big Brother will be fine there. Pay attention to the situation. Ben10 also understood the seriousness of the situation and saw Tian Mark's grim expression, quickly reaching out and saying. Xiao Yan. With the watch and sky energy's blessing, we don't need to worry about him. Let's go. Tien Mark said loudly once more. Ben Tennyson gritted his teeth and jumped in. Tien Mark quickly started the old RV and sped away into the distance. Your companion seems to have abandoned you. Vilgax said mockingly to Tien Xiaoyan. HMPH. They're just giving me a bigger operating stage. Tien Xiaoyan raised an eyebrow and rotated his watch, transforming into 4 arms. Magic incantations gathered in his mouth, and red magical energy, sky energy, appeared in all 4 of his hands. Ah! Tien Xiaoyan ran and jumped into the air, punching upwards. Whatever you do is useless. The Omnitrix will definitely be mine. And your Ultimatrix. Vilgax said indifferently, looking at the incoming attack. Bang! The two collided in an instant, and a powerful shockwave erupted between them. Inside the old RV, Ben Tennyson still couldn't believe that Tien Mark had just let him go like that, leaving Tien Xiaoyan alone to face Vilgax. Tien Mark, at this moment, said seriously, trust me. Xiao Yan will be fine. And you wouldn't want to go up against Vilgax. What? Vilgax. Wait, how do you know his name is Vilgax? Ben Tennyson was about to retort when he was surprised to find that Tien Mark knew Vilgax's name. And his tone sounded very familiar. Grandpa, are you hiding something from us? Gwen Tennyson also seized on the point of doubt and asked. A trace of struggle flashed in Tien Mark's eyes. And Big Brother. Vilgax seems to know him too. Ben Tennyson remembered the previous scene and quickly said. What exactly are you two hiding from us? Hearing this, Gwen Tennyson could no longer suppress the outburst in her heart. Tien Mark was about to explain when he noticed Vilgax's upgrade tracking them. Bang! 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 Tien Mark drove the old RV, dodging the upgrade's lasers. Hold on tight, Tien Mark said to the two, then floored the accelerator, heading towards the distant mountain peak. We can't keep running, Gwen Tennyson said, coming to the front seat, looking at the approaching upgrade. But if we don't get to Lashimo Mountain quickly, things will get worse, Tien Mark said, dodging a laser at the same time. Gwen Tennyson asked in surprise what was at Lashimo Mountain. Tien Mark said there was no time to explain, but just then, Ben Tennyson's Omnitrix became usable. Heroes don't run. And I'll never surrender without a fight. Ben Tennyson rotated his watch, slapped it down, and transformed into Stinkfly. Little Ban. Wait. Tien Mark's restraining cry had just come out when Ben Tennyson opened the car door and met the two upgrades. First, he dodged their laser shots. Ben Tennyson flew onto one of the upgrades. The other upgrade tried to fire a laser at Ben Tennyson. Ben Tennyson spat out green slime, blocking its gun barrel. Bang! Due to the blocked energy, the upgrade self-destructed and fell. Ben Tennyson then used the sharp part of his tail to destroy the power system of the upgrade on him, causing it to crash and die. Awesome. Ben Tennyson had just cheered twice when a purple claw grabbed his wrist. Looking closely, 66 had actually appeared in front of him. Hey! How did you get here? Ben Tennyson said in surprise. Diamond Head should have taken him away. 66, still speaking incomprehensible words, didn't make Ben Tennyson understand, but he knew it must be related to Vilgax. Get out of the way. Ben Tennyson spat out slime, directly hitting 66 a face. 66 instantly pulled away, his hands beginning to mess with the slime on his face, just as Ben Tennyson was about to press his advantage. 66 instantly cleared away the slime and pulled out a taser from his waist, hitting Ben Tennyson squarely. Ben Tennyson screamed in pain, finally collapsing in a cloud of smoke. And he reverted to his human form. 66 timely caught Ben Tennyson, although incomprehensible, his tone seemed very happy. He activated the flying device on his back and flew towards Vilgax's battleship. Tien Mark saw this scene, said nothing more, turned the old RV, and continued to drive towards Lashimo Mountain. Grandpa, what are you doing? We should go save Little Ban, Gwen Tennyson said, sitting in the passenger seat, puzzled. We are going to save him. But we need to get some reinforcements, Tien Mark replied calmly. Don't tell me we're going to Lashimo Mountain to get reinforcements. Grandpa, you're really scaring me, Gwen Tennyson complained. On the other side, Tien Xiaoyan, fighting Vilgax, had temporarily suppressed Vilgax by relying on the use of the Ultimatrix and the blessing of sky energy. However, Vilgax had very rich combat experience, and almost within 3 hours, he had resolved Tian Xiaoyan's offensive. Your sky energy and Ultimatrix are interesting, but against me, they are nothing but nonsense, Vilgax said calmly, standing in front of Tian Xiaoyan. This guy is really tough. Even the reinforced pillars on his arms are useless. It seems I can only use ultimate. Tian Xiaoyan truly knew Vilgax's strength, just as he was about to rotate the dial on his chest. Ding! 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 Red light suddenly burst from Vilgax's arm. Vilgax's eyes widened, and he instantly knew what was happening. It seems my objective has been completed. Then I'll come back to deal with you later. Vilgax said words of unclear meaning. What? Wait. Tisk. Tian Xiaoyan mumbled in confusion, just about to speak, when Vilgax slammed down a palm, kicking up smoke that blocked his vision. By the time Tian Xiaoyan focused, Vilgax was already rolling away in his brown sphere. He wouldn't just leave like that. Could it be Little Ban? Tian Xiaoyan thought that Ben10 might have been captured, and quickly rotated his watch, transforming into Fast Flash Star, and rushed over. Suddenly, Tian Mark drove the car in front of him. Grandpa, Tian Xiaoyan immediately stopped. Get in, Tian Mark said seriously, opening the car window. Gwen Tennyson also opened the car door for him. Tian Xiaoyan said nothing more and got straight in. On the other side, Ben10 was brought before Vilgax by 6-6. Ah! Let go of me. Ben10 struggled desperately. When Vilgax saw Ben10's small body, he said in disbelief, you little brat. The Omnitrix user is actually a little brat. Just as Vilgax was about to grab the Omnitrix, the Omnitrix unleashed a powerful green shockwave, directly blasting him and 6-6 away. Ah! Seeing this, Ben10 was about to run when Vilgax grabbed him. It seems the Omnitrix is firmly bound to your genes. But I have ways, he then threw him to the robotic servants nearby. 6-6 walked over, seemingly trying to take credit from Vilgax. Red light flickered in Vilgax's eyes. It seems you did well. It wasn't in vain that I brought you out of the galactic prison. This is your bounty, he then motioned to the upgrade nearby. Bang! A treasure chest crashed down from the sky. 6-6 was incredibly excited looking at the huge treasure. Alright, don't bother me, now scram. Vilgax began to drive 6-6 away. 6-6 said nothing more, took the treasure, and flew away directly. Because he knew he was no match for Vilgax. On the other side, Tian Mark drove the vehicle once again onto the mountain road of Lashimo Mountain and said, this weapon's inner diameter has Vilgax's genetic connection. I hope this time we can completely deal with him. This time? Gwen Tennyson asked in confusion. There's a small red button in the glove compartment. Press it, Tian Mark said without explicitly pointing to the side. Gwen Tennyson pressed it, and instantly, a blue projection map with a red dot appeared. Hey, what is this? Gwen Tennyson was startled. Satellite Global Positioning Tracking System. It will track the watch's signal, right? Tian Xiaoyan said from the back, stroking his chin. Exactly. Xiao Wen. You navigate. Tian Mark nodded. You two really scared me, Gwen Tennyson complained, looking at the serious expressions of Tian Mark and Tian Xiaoyan. Aha! Ben Tennyson was trapped in a silver circular energy restraint device, struggling to break free. Prepare for liftoff. Once we leave Earth's orbit, I can enjoy the pleasure of destroying this earthling imbecile. Forever eliminating future troubles. Vilgax came before Ben Tennyson and said cruelly. Ben Tennyson's eyes widened in terror as he looked at him. Rumble. On Tian Xiaoyan's side, they saw the spaceship about to launch. The spaceship is over there. Gwen Tennyson pointed ahead and said. We have to get on board, Tian Mark said, staring at the spaceship in front of him. Gwen Tennyson asked in confusion how to get on. Tian Mark smiled slightly and pressed a button under the steering wheel. Click. Instantly, all the parts around the old RV were transformed into an energy vehicle capable of withstanding impacts. This is a bit slow. Watch me, Tian Xiaoyan said from the back, then rotated his watch and transformed into upgrade. He covered the old RV, then modified and built 2 rocket launchers and gliders. It flew at high speed. Great job, Xiao Yan. Xiao Wen, hold on tight. Tien Mark praised him, then turned to Gwen Tennyson and said. Ah ah ah. Gwen Tennyson could only respond with screams. The old RV leapt into the air and directly crashed into the space battleship. Don't worry, he'll be finished soon. Vilgax held an energy blade in his hand. He came before Ben Tennyson and raised it, aiming at his arm. Just at that critical moment, a sudden siren sounded. Bang! The old RV, modified by Tian Xiaoyan, directly smashed through the battleship wall. It slammed violently into Vilgax. Warning! Energy overload. Vilgax was slammed into the nearby wall. Tien Mark, now with his energy cannon ready, got out of the car. He shouted loudly at Vilgax, release my grandson immediately, Vilgax. The energy cannon in his hand gathered energy. Tien. Although Tien Mark's hair was already white, Vilgax still recognized the hateful Tien Mark at a glance. Bang! A huge burst of energy flew out from the energy cannon, hitting Vilgax and sending him directly into the wall. Little Ban. Tien Xiaoyan now detached from the old RV, rotated his watch, and transformed into Diamond Head. The crystals in his hand sharpened, and after a flash of silver light, Ben Tennyson was free from his restraints. Great, you're here. Ah. Ben Tennyson looked at Tien Xiaoyan and the others walking over, just about to say something, when his body involuntarily began to mutate. Then, under everyone's gaze, fast flash star. Diamond head. 4 arms. Finally, he stopped in the form of upgrade. What's going on? Gwen Tennyson said in surprise, looking at Ben Tennyson constantly transforming. The energy overload must have affected the watch. I need to control the spaceship. Tien Mark instantly understood the situation, then turned and walked towards the control panel. He can even control a spaceship. Ben Tennyson stood up and asked in confusion. You should ask Big Brother about this. But I'm already used to it, Gwen Tennyson said numbly, pointing to Tien Xiaoyan next to her. Well, we'll talk about that later. Be careful, Tien Xiaoyan, having understood the cause and effect from their words, laughed awkwardly, but then he noticed countless upgrades flying out from a large door. They fired countless lasers. Tien Xiaoyan used his hands to build a crystal wall to block the attack, then rushed forward. Xiao Wen. Find a place to hide, Ben Tennyson said, looking at the intensely fighting Tien Xiaoyan, then turned to Gwen Tennyson. All right. Without bringing the lucky charm, Gwen Tennyson could only give up and found a place to hide. Bang! 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 While Tien Xiaoyan and Ben Tennyson were fiercely fighting countless upgrades, Ben Tennyson's Omnitrix kept transforming uncontrollably. It even specifically stayed in the form of Little Odd Soldier. Boom! 2 upgrades tried to ambush Ben Tennyson. Tien Xiaoyan used 2 crystal spikes to pierce them. Oh, how annoying. I finally learned to transform randomly like Big Brother. And it's still not under my control, Ben Tennyson said speechlessly, looking at his small body. Heh, Tien Xiaoyan smiled helplessly. On the other side, Tien Mark was skillfully operating the control panel, when a pair of red eyes emerged from the smoke and stared at Tien Mark. Ah! Tien Mark also keenly sensed it, but was still grabbed by a large hand. Grandpa! Tien Xiaoyan and the others also noticed it. Vilgax threw Tien Mark onto the empty deck at the spaceship's entrance and stepped on him. Ah! Tien Mark struggled in pain. Your weapon is useless, Tien. You can see I'm much stronger than when you last saw me, Vilgax said indifferently, looking down at Tien Mark. After speaking, he was about to kick him down. Tien Xiaoyan saw this scene and widened his eyes, saying, don't even think about it. You stinky squid. After that, he sliced the upgrade in his hand in 2. Under everyone's gaze, he ran straight up and tackled Vilgax. Ah! Vilgax was tackled by him and fell from a height of 10,000 meters. Big Brother X2. Xiao Yan. Tien Mark, Ben Tennyson, and Gwen Tennyson peeked out from the spaceship's entrance, looking at Tien Xiaoyan and the others. I'm going to help him. Ben Tennyson, who had also transformed into a upgrade, jumped down and turned into a parachute. Little Ban. You idiot. Gwen Tennyson shouted when she saw this. Now I can only try my best to help them. Tien Mark gritted his teeth when he saw this, then turned and went to the control panel. Bang! In midair, Vilgax first grabbed Tien Xiaoyan's body and threw him down. Seeing this, Tian Xiaoyan rotated his watch and transformed into Ice Ghost, cushioning the impact. Ha! Before Tian Xiaoyan could catch his breath, Vilgax clenched his fist and struck him directly. Tian Xiaoyan's body became ethereal, dodging the punch. Unfortunately, the giant stone statue below was directly shattered. Ha! Tian Xiaoyan spit out an ice ray, hitting Vilgax. Bang! Vilgax blocked the ray with his hand and was not frozen. He grabbed Tian Xiaoyan's body with his other hand and threw him towards a nearby stone. Ah! Annoying. This seems to be the first time I've been at a disadvantage, and I didn't expect it to hurt so much. Tian Xiaoyan painfully extricated himself from the stone. What you're doing will only accelerate your death. Then I'll fulfill your wish. Vilgax slowly walked out of the smoke and said coldly. Tian Xiaoyan rotated his watch and transformed into amphibian, with electricity sparking in his hands, looking at Vilgax. At this moment, a pale figure fell from the sky and landed on the ground. Tian Xiaoyan looked closely and saw it was Ben Tennyson's great iron jaw. Sometimes I really hate this broken watch. Ben Tennyson said with a bitter face. What's it like to suddenly turn into great iron jaw while flying in the sky? You're a slippery little fish. Let me take your life. Vilgax came to Ben Tennyson's side, then injected the cylindrical object in his hand into his arm, and in an instant, Vilgax's hand became enormous. Bang! He threw a punch down. At this critical moment, Ben Tennyson activated the Omnitrix again, then selected a function and transformed into Fast Flash Star. He dodged the attack and came to Tian Xiaoyan, tentatively asking, Big brother, what should we do next? Tian Xiaoyan heard him and said seriously, let's test his current strength first. I don't quite understand what you mean by that. But I'll listen to you. Ben Tennyson was a little surprised that Tian Xiaoyan was still trying to test the strength of such a guy, but he still trusted Tian Xiaoyan. You're both dead. Both of you. Vilgax raised his enormous arm and ran towards Tian Xiaoyan and the others. Boom. On the other side, Tian Mark switched Vilgax's battleship to self-destruct mode. We have to get off the ship, Tian Mark said to Gwen Tennyson. How do we get down? Gwen Tennyson asked in surprise, but her eyes unconsciously glanced at the old RV. Tian Mark instantly understood a hint, a smile on his face. Bang! Vilgax punched both of them away, and Tian Xiaoyan fell in front of him. Ben Tennyson was trembling, annoying. It's going to hurt like hell tomorrow. Vilgax heard this and turned his head to see him. Don't worry, you won't have a tomorrow. He raised his arm again, intending to attack Ben Tennyson. Ben Tennyson seemed to have resigned himself to the fact that he couldn't win, and closed his eyes, preparing to accept his fate. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, Tian Xiaoyan's laughter came, and Vilgax and Ben Tennyson turned their heads to see that Tian Xiaoyan had already transformed into Shenli Tyrannosaurus and stood up at some point. Big brother. Ben Tennyson looked at him in surprise. No matter what kind of alien you become, you won't be able to defeat me. Give up. Vilgax still said disdainfully. From the battle just now, I understood that ordinary alien heroes cannot defeat you when you're enhanced, but what if they evolve? Tian Xiaoyan looked at Vilgax strangely. Evolved. Ben Tennyson heard this and was a little confused. What do you mean? Vilgax felt a hint of vigilance rise in his heart when he heard this. My Ultimatrix has different functions from the Omnitrix. And it wasn't created by Azimuth. Its other functions are also vastly different from the Omnitrix. But it has one characteristic. It can allow the alien heroes I possess to undergo ultimate evolution into brand new versions. Want to see? After Tian Xiaoyan finished speaking, he rotated the symbol on his chest. In an instant, 4 iron prongs appeared on the Ultimatrix symbol, and then, under Vilgax's surprised gaze, Tian Xiaoyan pressed it. In an instant, Shenli Tyrannosaurus's appearance changed. Its original brown skin turned green. Blue armor also appeared on its chest, and its body became robust. Blue armor devices also grew on its back. Its tail also had a small object similar to a meteor hammer. Ultimate power Tyrannosaurus, Tian Xiaoyan roared to the sky, then stared at Vilgax. How is that possible? Vilgax said in disbelief. So cool, big brother. Ben Tennyson shouted excitedly. Game over. Tian Xiaoyan's eyes narrowed, and he quickly came in front of Vilgax and threw a punch. Bang! The moment Vilgax put out his arm to block, his eyes widened because he found that he couldn't withstand Tian Xiaoyan's strength. Both speed and strength have been enhanced several times. Is this the power after evolution? Vilgax said unwillingly. That's right, Tian Xiaoyan responded, then punched him into the air, and then his hands transformed into 4 launchers. Bang! 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 In an instant, countless missiles came out from his launchers, and Vilgax was hit, creating smoke. Tian Xiaoyan rotated the watch on his chest again. This time, what appeared was a slightly larger one with a red exterior. Ultimate Ice Phantom, Tian Xiaoyan flew into the air, and although he spit out flames from his mouth, it was a power that could freeze Vilgax. Ah! Vilgax struggled and fell to the ground. He looked up and saw Tian Xiaoyan's transformed ultimate form again. Ultimate Echo Echo, Tian Xiaoyan transformed into a blue mechanical part. The originally short little Bobo also became an adult state. Tian Xiaoyan separated a sound wave separation device from his shoulder, emitting strong sound waves to attack Vilgax. Bang! Vilgax painfully struggled out of the ice and covered his ears, retreating. Ha! 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 After the attack ended, Vilgax half squatted on the ground, struggling. Let's end it with this. Tian Xiaoyan raised the watch on his chest again, transforming into a white body with a tree head that was a blue sphere. Ultimate Swampfire, Tian Xiaoyan condensed blue nuclear explosion flames in his hand and blasted Vilgax several meters away, sending him flying towards the forest behind him. Ow! Ben10 originally wanted to come over and praise him, but because the Omnitrix transformed him into Super Energy Beast again. I know. You want to praise me, right? Let's talk about it later. Tian Xiaoyan understood and said, looking down at Ben10. Then he transformed into Fast Flash Star and went in Vilgax's direction. Ow! Ben10 roared somewhat unwillingly. He also wanted to transform into Fast Flash Star, not run over like this. On the other side, Tian Mark and Gwen Tennyson, who were riding the old RV, finally got away from the battleship that was about to be destroyed. However, they also lost consciousness because the impact from high altitude caused some damage to the old RV. As Vilgax flew away, he realized that he was no match for Tian Xiaoyan now. But when he stopped and retreated, he saw the old RV and the 2 people inside, and he smiled sinisterly. Grandpa. Xiao Wen. Tian Xiaoyan saw the somewhat damaged old RV and understood what was happening. Ow! At this moment, Ben10, who had transformed into Super Energy Beast, also knew where Tian Mark and the others were and roared in one direction. Tian Xiaoyan activated his roller skates and quickly arrived, only to see Vilgax holding Tian Mark and Gwen Tennyson, saying coldly, "You decide, who should die." After speaking, he tightened his grip. Afraid they would fall. Tisk. Tian Xiaoyan cursed, but then, thinking of the subsequent plot, he also deactivated his transformation. Ow! Just as Ben10 was about to rescue Tian Mark and the others from Vilgax's hands with Tian Xiaoyan. He found that Tian Xiaoyan had deactivated his transformation and looked at him in confusion. The most important thing now is Grandpa and Xiao Wen. Tian Xiaoyan didn't say much, just stated the situation. Seeing this, Ben10 also fell silent, and then the Omnitrix also flashed red at this moment, turning him back into his human form. How touching, Vilgax said mockingly when he saw their choice. Then he had the spaceship come to his side, dropped Tian Mark and the others, and grabbed Tian Xiaoyan and Ben10 with both hands, jumping onto it. Wait! Vilgax, don't get on the spaceship, Tian Mark, who had also woken up at this moment, shouted loudly. Rumble. Vilgax, who was gradually ascending the spaceship, said disdainfully, Tian, do you think I'd still believe your nonsense? The spaceship's self-destruct countdown has already begun. He operated the control panel in disbelief. After realizing it was useless, he roared, Tian, you really are a thorn in my side. Bang! But suddenly, a blue ray and a red ray hit him, blocking him with a huge mechanical object. Then were also thorns in your flesh X2. Ben10 held an energy cannon, and Tian Xiaoyan's hand glowed with red sky energy. Then, they both ran towards the spaceship's entrance. Spaceship self-destruct countdown, 5 seconds. No. Listening to the spaceship's system report, Vilgax roared unwillingly. At the same time, Ben Tennyson transformed into Flame Man, and Tian Xiaoyan also manipulated sky energy to form a flying platform under his feet. Rumble. From the exploding battleship, two red and fiery meteors escaped the explosion. They crashed directly into an open space. Bang! Tian Mark and Gwen Tennyson arrived at the open space and saw Tian Xiaoyan sitting to one side, while Ben Tennyson was sitting on a higher point. You're all right. Gwen Tennyson said with tears in her eyes, smiling. Of course. Oh, by the way. Grandpa and Big Brother, explain it, Ben Tennyson said with a smile, then looked at Tian Xiaoyan and Tian Mark. Tian Mark and Tian Xiaoyan exchanged glances and smiled slightly. Thanks for watching.